communication, connectivity is everything. We ensure that the links never sleep. Quantities and qualities, all in our data service, providing efficient, reliable voice and data service. We believe if you're not up to speed, then you're going backwards. Communications have to flow as fast as the speed of light. Whatever business you're in, having someone who understands your needs is critical. That is why we just don't offer you technology, we offer you solutions. Enjoy Gamcel's internet broadband anytime, anywhere. Your national operator, Gamcel, Yaibaram.
Alright.
Honey, did you remind him that the last time he sent the money, it was not enough to buy all the provisions?
Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell him.
Are you guys talking about money transfer to buy provisions?
Yes.
But don't you know about Baluwo?
Baluwo? What is Baluwo?
Baluwo is a service that your son can use to send provisions directly to you guys from the shop. And you don't have to worry about the exchange rate.
Tell me how Baluwo works.
It's very simple.
Just log on to baluwo.com and shop, or download the app on your phone. You can shop on the website or using the app to buy online basic products for your family and friends. With Baluwo, you decide what your money is spent on. Your money, your choice. Buy online products for your family and friends in the Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria or Mali. Baluwo, better than sending money.
Are you thinking of owning your dream homes? EJ Investment is here for you. Secure our quality bungalows with 2, 3 or 4 bedrooms, or our story buildings 3 or 4 to 5 bedrooms at very affordable prices with flexible payment plans at our Sanyang Seaview Estate, where you can enjoy the cool breeze with modern infrastructure such as tar roads, covered drainage system, modern electrification with street lights, gated entrance with security posts, and social amenities such as gas station, shopping mall, medical clinic, park, schools, children daycare, and a lot more. Our dedicated team of professionals will keep the estate clean at all times, provide security and patrol team within the estate premises, install latest technologies such as CCTV, Wi-Fi, home network installation, solar panel, and power backup system. Also, check out for our additional home facilities and interior design service such as premium tiling, wall plaster, home landscape, fingerprint home lock, and a lot more. Visit our office at Senegambia Kololi Highway and get a free site visit tour, or contact us on 4464-838. WhatsApp us on 3259220. Or you can visit our Facebook page or Instagram on EJ Investments. EJ Investments, we are first in properties.
Agada.
Mbijan aganyani.
Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. Korsa. Nsila ID soto.
Ah, sasa ndo. Sorry. Agada.
Mbijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariaka.
Ah,
mbare ki janna nun kunu bara tariaka.
Ah, janno mi wana forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Ha. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolong blabe to.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Ha. Gambia kono anin Gambia bantala bankol. Nko kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi to poto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 di nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi mani domorol dir fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale di.
Ha, wo mo yo diat ha.
Apelenta
baraka ba. Ni mo lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bukani la ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.
We live in a day and age where technology is creating a world without borders, filled with unlimited potential to improve the lives of the people around us. Innovarex Global Health ushers in a new way of leveling the playing field with increased access to quality healthcare services delivered at your doorstep. Our qualified professionals are equipped with state-of-the-art point-of-care testing technology to conduct tests such as kidney function, liver function, electrolyte tests, body composition, hemoglobin, A1C, and many more services.
You may please proceed.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners and everyone. We are ready to proceed with the witness, and fortunately, he's already seated in his desk. So, Mr. Touray, if we may continue.
Mr. Touray, say nisa damu rano nga lo damendo janimira fonyon ningola.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and my learned friend and members of the Commission.
Altinyang, Mr. Chairman, nkafunyo lokunyo, aning Commission la almulman baby jang albe Altinyang.
I hope you had a very good lunch.
Yes, it was a very nice local dish.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it indeed. Thank you.
That's good. So at least you have some energy for the last session.
Much obliged.
During the previous session, you gave us some more examples of widespread executive interference into the judicial process.
Misal jamal dinna men yalongo wollel ka tamandulu ke dabulol menke nu na kitio fannal la nu meran ko ka bonan na santo ngo mem ya jamena la bala multi.
During your postings at the Banjul Magistrates Court as well as Mansakonko and Farafenye.
Follow wato men yesamba do ko la Banjul Magistrates Court aning Farafenye Magistrates Court and Mansakonko Magistrates Court.
You also described how membership of the TRRC could gain you massive favor with the executive.
Do yafo jam fana wala TRRC la kanun delti ka kenna nyaade le puruka katakol men fere puruka demaroso to kiti bundal bulu.
Extending to immunity from civil and criminal prosecution, it seems.
Andunga bektara wo kono wala minti kuola men yalon ko dammani damma kiti bundal lem anin tajire ya kisiol me yalon kitiol men yalon ko katara kerin je ke dabulol men ke je nyame.
And even absolve you from the legal responsibility of paying lawful debts.
Andung haning anarana ibonde ko woni kono puruka moli julol men jota ikabalanga jola luwa ko to luwa e kamodi nyawnya ikabalanga ke.
Whilst on the other hand, if you were a perceived opposition of the Jamia administration,
tumalamen gal han kabi wonya kiro nya ninga etere sobo keta ko itemu molti me yalon ko mu jamme marala molti,
that meant unlawful prosecution.
Membina la le daga wala nyindi ko abina kala be kitin le me yalon ko abekala luwanta ya kitin dirolde.
Persecution, harassment, intimidation.
De tobe la le kan andum malobe la le fanan kan,
as well as victimization. You explained that due to your stance and your position as a magistrate to work according to the dictates of your conscience, the law and justice, you were actually earmarked by the executive. And you were just about to give us an example of how this came to play. When you had a clash with the military in Farafenye, I believe it was at a military checkpoint. Kindly tell us how that unfolded.
It's okay. Thank you so much. I remember one day, I was in Farafenye. The same Abasanya I spoke about earlier on. His elder brother was my personal friend.
Akoto mamunte fango terileti.
He had a mission. He came to Farafenni, but he was exhausted. He was tired.
Ay hajole soto anata Farafenni bari wo tembo na ko yatara abatata.
He wanted me to drop him at the Bambatenda terminal.
Alafta purunga samba katajindi Bambatenda ferry lodulato.
He pleaded with me to give him a lift, just to drop him at the riverside.
Ndani puru nga kata nga dema nga samba motola katajindi bada la je ferry okalodami.
So I was obliged. We moved. When we reached the army camp, the road was clear. There was no vehicle in the checkpoint. So I drove straight in and I found a military officer standing on the highway. He said, I needed his permission for him to give me signal to enter the checkpoint. He asked me to go back on the rear. I said I wasn't going to do it.
Ako ntes nyantate batulale purate ntes signal puru ntenga dung wo dinkirato kasilota prunkata ako woto ngamuru koma hanfo nyanta lola damen janimbe dunnaite lawma wo ma fangola bari mfanan konte okela.
He insisted vehemently. He brought down his rifle. I told him, look, this does not scare me. I'm not moving.
Abalanta hanfo ayala kido jindi kawmuta nka nyimbukande silandi ndum fanante murula koma.
So we had an altercation, verbal altercation there.
Bitung diamu nyo saba nyo tema jele.
But when he realized I wasn't going to move, and after a lot of irresponsible talk, I put on the gear of my vehicle and I left him behind. So I went, I dropped Abba and I came back. But in the ensuing altercation, he asked who I was. I told him I am the traveling magistrate, but I said that's not important here. And he started shouting at the peak of his voice, are you king, are you this, are you that? So like I said, I proceeded to Bambatenda, I dropped Abba, and I came back.
And at this point, were you also in your official vehicle?
Yes, that was the official vehicle for the magistrate. And I must also say this, all along the South Bank and the North Bank route, everybody identified that vehicle because it was in service for over a period of 5 years or more.
Mbe wo moto le kono ye mendina do kura moto menyanta tarlambulu mbe wo le kono adum be nyum fola wo moto ba kankum fulo be krafulo be wo moto lonne ya sute kat wo yatara moto nyi wuchew menke do ko lantel buluja sanji lulo sile.
In fact, when he was misbehaving, one of his colleagues came from the main gate, approached him, tried to whisper to him that you are talking to the magistrate.
Katu birabe o manya siala je akafunyoma kilim fama botana mbunda bala anata wala fita diamula ka diamwa e dumala ka fayen ko ka diamu nyimete nyino magistrate tijang.
But he was just an indisciplined character.
Bari molo meya lonko aketa moleti meya lonko amang horoma soto.
So in the evening, when his commander, the camp commander in Farafenni, who was at the time Yankuba Drame, the current CDS.
CDS, Chief of Defense Staff.
He came to Nawek Farafenni station to meet his cousin brother Omar, who was my friend. I used to stay with Omar in Farafenni.
Anatan Nawek la officer of Farafenni, Purukana Asanao Badin Dojije. Omar adu Omar wayatara umunte terletin na kataranyo kan wati jama.
Omar is the full blood elder brother of Abba.
Abba womu Omar koto maleti yelo la karola ngamira identa bani mfala.
So I complained to Yakuba how, in fact, this officer misbehaved.
Bitotumolo nga kala miro fo Yankuba nyin sojaro ay manya menke wolun nte kang siloka.
He was sorry about it. He apologized personally. So we spoke over it, and that was the end.
Ndi amuta aketaye afango ye kuyanye kuoti barbitong ayembolo sai nga kodi amufonga banje farang.
So when I went back to Kombo, I narrated the incident to my dad. He was offended. He said I should write a petition.
Birin seita nang Kombo ndi amuta mfamaye aketaye kuyanye kuoti akonyanta kalamiro safela lewo kuokama.
Then I wrote a letter, a formal letter of complaint to the commandant of the camp in Farafenye.
Wotumolem ngawasi dani kalamir letoro safe kaki kuntonko mem commandati membe Farafenye campo wotumo.
I copied the Secretary General, copied the Army Commander then Babkar Jata, copied the Master of the High Court.
Nga letoro nyin yelemang ngadoki Attorney General ngadoki sojaro la kuntonko ngadoki dinkira luto dal damen yalon ko keta dinkira kum malti letoro nyanta tala damen nuto.
Few days later, I was in Mansakonko. The post office messenger came and delivered a letter in my hand.
Til ganta obe kola mbe Mansakonko bari do kula membe post office ka letoro lu pose damin anata ay letoro natinya ayadum blokono.
This was a reply to my letter that I addressed to the Army Commander in Farafenye, but this time round it was the Army Commander who was writing to me, Babkar Jata, with a very rude and sulky letter. I'm sorry to say. Very rude and sulky letter.
Between ni letero le kata jabiroti ntenga letero men safenu sojar nyaton ko e Farafenye bari nak men na tante jabi wala sojarul bela nyaton ko te utumo ka fay Babkar Jata bara la letero kata letter ti men ya lon ko kuma furim balu men ya lon ko horomanta ya kumolu ayol le safe wol letero to
indicating in the said letter that they've not been able to control me, but this time around they would get me.
And that foko itelumante malankuno bari nyin silo ibe bulo la lankane.
Okay, when I received the letter, I read it 3 times.
Bring a letter on soto nga karansi nya saba.
I was so annoyed about it.
Akoyen kamfa bake.
Then I received a call
bituotumo fananata kumandiro soto
on the land phone.
Telefono ti meyalon kolem office kono telefono ti land phone.
Mr. Touray, before we go to the call, from the contents of the letter and how you felt about it, did you feel threatened in any way?
No, I was not threatened. As a matter of fact, I was willing to engage Babkar.
But was it a threat?
It was a threat, but I was willing to engage him. I wanted to send him a stinker.
Ateyele kuma kamulu menu safia munta silandir kumollem. Bari wo mante silandia mambo noto nda fa lafta jabila num fa nganyon kuma kon kolengulu kiaye.
So I then received a call. Again, another big coincidence. It was his assistant who was Serif Samsudin Sar.
Yo andung anatake kuti menketa bengoti. Andu otatake ate nolang koleti ikafome nutumo Serif Samsudin Sar.
Serif Samsudin had been trying to reach me on the phone for over a week.
Serif Samsudin ba kata kanum pur kante soto telefono to men tatan fa siata lokumuti
on a private matter.
Kula karola me yalonko womu karala quality.
I've never met him in life.
So
he would call all the stations where I used to travel because we sit in Mansakonko, Farafenye, Kerawan, and SEO. And then when I come down to the combos, so he would keep calling all around various stations where I work and my home address in Serekunda.
Ay kumandiro ke dinkira jamalle to wotu montela ko do ko benyamin nka tamale kata kitolu ke dulalto Mansakonko Farafenye Kerewan ndaka kito ke damenu beto ayulu be kumandi kata hanfo na suo fongo kono ala kumandiro tata baro nyonya nding aman soto no fowulum.
So when I received this call, he introduced himself, we greeted, and then we spoke about the issue he wanted to discuss with me.
So bringa la kumandiro soto nganyo konto nganyo hadamaya hanfo ngambandi bitu tumole na takacha te bande kumandi kan komena bitu ngaobe kacha utumole.
Then I said to him, but look, I said, I just received a letter from your army headquarters, and it's your commander, Babkar Jata, who's writing to me. The letter is rude and sulky.
Wotumolem nata fay bringa diamo banka bari nga letaro le soto mbulu jande membota alla sojaru goya kuntonko ya bari letaro nyin kuma furin kuma hormantam balle be kal letaro nyin kono.
I said to him, I didn't write to Babkar, I only copied him.
Nka ntema Babkar fango safe ndenga men safe nga ki meye nga ayele male drom pour ka ki ate fana ye pra fanansi bo akalama.
And he said, oh, is it you? I said, yes. Oh, you are the magistrate who was the subject of that letter? I said, yes. He said, please, I beg you for God's sake, don't reply to that letter.
Akonye yo muna itelo mitelo magistrate o tinkai ha. Akonye bitu letter o munta ya ulitele kamankai ha. Akonye ngedani alaye kana o letter o jabi.
He then quickly added, he said, I beg you, do it for my own sake, not for your own sake anymore. Please don't reply to that letter.
Aseta kotaka akonye mbedani la alaye. Akentela ko kama kanete fangola ko jube bari ntela ko jube kana o letter o jabi.
He said there is a big conspiracy behind that letter. If you would reply to that letter, you may even lose your very life.
Akonye jamfa jaubale be sitiring wo letter o la ko kama. Adunia jabi ya ko tentendi asekeno if sibono ini o fangoto.
Said this matter was discussed in State House.
And
orders have been given by the president.
Said when
Babakar came from State House, he called my assistant, that was the third in command, a Mr. Baji. I cannot remember his first name now, but it's a Mr. Baji. He said Babakar called my assistant, who was third in command in the army.
State House. Babakar ye mo kumandi me yalon sojaro la nyaton kaya silo. Wole mo sabanja utime mo sojaro lube kunton koti kadu ni botate Babakar ya atelo mo foloti franja mo Mr. Sarleti sabanja ko Mr. Bajilo mo ta kanyi na to tolale andum Mr. Jata yo fon kumandile kadia moye.
So when Babakar was talking to Baji in his office, he said, you know, in the army headquarters, if you know the building, he said the upstairs apartment, it doesn't have a ceiling. So when you are talking in one office, and you are in another office, you can hear directly all what is being said.
Ako Babakar be dia mukawo Mr. Baji etumo meng nie sojar korda nyin Kenya lonje silinte bunyina ni be dia mukang office do kono membe siring office do kono wokela kuma kan lu be moyle wole asabu Babakar be dia mukang nyin ala assistant etumo menna mo ala assistant nolanko etumo menna ateyo kuma kan lu moy wotumole.
He said, when I had the conversation, I wasn't happy because I knew what they were up to was nasty, but I couldn't intervene. I just kept quiet.
Ako biringala moila kumola hanufu ngambandi aketanyi ni kuyabati amandi anya ferenkatu ngalonko ibe ferole sitika memu fereja upati bari wairi mandabula je kuma mamfonye wala namfanangande bari amandi anya fereng.
He said the issue is beyond Babakar himself. Please, I'm begging you, don't reply to that letter.
Akonye ngotumole konyin atambita Babakar fango kumolale wotombe dani la kana o letter o jabi.
But I wasn't bothered about that.
Bari wa mantede unga mansila.
When we did our round, I came home. I went to the High Court.
High Court.
I had cause to meet the master, Usman Jammeh. I said, Master, did you read Babakar's letter? He said, yes. In fact, that's a matter I want to discuss with you. He said, as a matter of fact, just 2 days ago, I met Babakar at the petrol station. He said it was just a coincidence. We both entered the station. We wanted to fill our vehicles. He said, soon as he saw me, he alighted his vehicle. He came down to my vehicle, telling me, this is your magistrate. It's been a problem for us now, but we will get him.
Biringate lota drong ayenteje ajitala motoko na atantela mototo akavo nyanko alanyi magistrate kari mole meya lonko akitamo kolengol tibari mbulobe la kanne.
So Usman said, please don't reply to the letter because if you do, it's dangerous.
Usman konyan dukare kanela letter o jabi niyake asikeno ku kolengoti.
So he felt threatened that it was time that I should be transferred from Masakongo.
ate konyi ya deunne hanfo afutata nyin tembo to ko inyanta nte soundila le fan kambondi mansa konko tembo.
Because he knew that I will definitely have problems with the soldiers in Farafenni on the ground.
Atu ay nyin lonko soja rolu men be Farafenni nite kar la nyoma fonni ye ku soto me ya lonka asike wali oti niolu tema.
So when I came home, I discussed the matter with my dad. He told me, when you narrated your episode, I knew somebody was behind it all. It was not just a mere coincidence.
Birin saita su ngako nyin Kenya be kachamfa mae. Akonye ngalonne amanke kukense motide amanke kuti fananka foko kole menning akolu benta ngalon ko mole be akonyin koma.
So that was the issue. I didn't want to pursue the issue any further because it coincided with my transfer, and that was the end of the Masakonko episode.
Wolem konyindi yo manna bula kono makoteke katu yente saundi wole nyama yembondi mansa konko bitun konyim fananata dede la wole nyama.
And Mr. Touray, you've already alluded to the fact that you accept that you are a strong-headed individual.
Mr. Touray, sontologo ite multimia ekungo jata baka ibokasong.
Or perhaps someone would say stubborn.
I'm not strong-headed, neither am I stubborn. I just feel I should not be intimidated in any given situation.
Amanke kunjati, andunga manke kanja fananti. Barintena nyine mutako, mu manya nante silandila ku kense mokango nyaduru.
But in fact, your recalcitrance and your defiance to the dispensation at the time attracted the attention of the big man himself, as they otherwise known as Oga.
Komi ila manyani ika balanyami wayati nale fola bongo fo mimi alonko wale mata masakundala na teka moti mi alonko ay abotela ku kalama.
Ikafai Oga.
Yes, he made a statement about me a couple of times.
Sinyafula akadiamu andunga kakuma fo ntela kuoma.
I remember the Abasanyang incident that I took to the court. The elders of Buyam and Kankuntu went to meet him after the elections.
Buyam ni Kankuntu alifalu ikafuta nyoma le tata kambrin karte fayo botala.
And I saw that program over the television.
Na program je television oleto.
Part of this discussion was to reconcile with the Buyam community for the unlawful arrest and incarceration of Abba.
Programu la fanna do bije wole mnyintiko isakata ye muru nyokan ye badi ya choki ka foko Abasanya na muto aketa kuleti romme ya lonko aketa le baribitung isi muru nyoka ye akuo landi ye badi ya julo luchoki.
On that occasion, he made a statement. He said what annoyed him most was the fact that when Abba was arrested and detained, he did not opt for any other lawyer but one who does not only hate his government but does not like him in person as a human being.
Ako me yate dimen kuo kono, biringo kuo keta, ye lawyer men bula akonyi noma wala memba kito nyin tamandikang atatake moleti me yalonko amari amanda nyinna ko amalla finna man sakundala bari mole munyinti wo me yalonko ayente fango kungole kong ay naman sakunda kong bari konante ya fango asembo abentele nokan.
So Jame himself perceived you as a personal threat, as an enemy.
He said it many times. But I wasn't bothered about it, quite frankly. I remember when we had the Pasala Jan case. I traveled to the provinces with my mother-in-law, my wife's mother. The British High Commission was concerned about my personal safety because they made inquiries and all the answers were leading to the conclusion that they didn't, all the people they contacted informed them that they didn't know my whereabouts, so they were concerned about my personal safety.
Bitungo British High Commission membijang na ko ya de umbake atena donyolu katu na otamo biri manje mankalangolong akokete de umbate ando ya nyinin karolu kedamen nubeto dinkira man soto mensi kuma ko yo faye bituntela o yemango wonya aketa kole abati.
Sorry, it was the Shayeji affair of the European Union. Alexandro Mariani, who was asking about my whereabouts.
Okay,
sorry about that.
Among British like Commission, Alexandro Mariani, Woleba ko no masata kanung, Willem European Union, Willem Europe Banko Laden na Kafuba, member Siring wo Kafo Toya la Gambia Jang, Woleba ko no makanu, Woleben na kuinin kakanu.
So when I came from the provinces, it was D.A. Jao who got me on the phone.
Rimbotanam bolongo kono wasilo on Satan. D.A. Jao, wole kumandi telefonoto.
And that's the former Minister of Information.
And then Minister Tijang Memmarta Kibaro Lula.
And he said the European Union Shayed Afia has been asking about you and wanted to see you. He said, I will call him to tell him that you are around, you are in town.
Akonyang wotumoleko. Membe siring jang abe maraling Europe tundo la kulula be karafari kul be karafari ngatela mafolo nyin tembeng. Amari be nyinin ka kanne nunga be nyinin kang yo bar bitun silang wairi e ngeje mbe akumandila le ngafa en ko ina tale katwa kalafta diamule yende mba fala ina tale bijang.
So I went to meet him in the office. Then their office was in Banjul.
Utumole mulita ntata bayindi katala office oto utumo ila office obe Banjul.
When I met him, he asked me if I had wanted to relocate to any of the countries in the West.
Akonye fo ibela filale kata si banku kang aketa banku o bankuti menketa tubabu banko la hoteliji mafangoti.
He expressed concern about my security.
Ayala daunda itandi ntefango kungola tanko kama.
He said we don't have consular services here, but rest assured, wherever you want to go in the Western Hemisphere, I will talk to the embassies and they will give you a visa.
Akonyente lajang mambunda sotome yalon ko wolle ka odoku fasongolu tamandi tamala la kolu consular services akonyem bari ijuso tenkundi hakilo tenkundi ite lafta tala dawo bankolu kan ndebe diamula wala ambassador yenne kaje ko e ko men nyanta topoto layte ya be topoto fo ila tasi sono ya.
I told him I was not leaving the Gambia under any circumstance.
Kay mampare Gambia bulala ntita dawo ko kunding ba koma mbetula janne.
And Mr. Touray, you've said time and time again that you were not intimidated.
No, certainly I was not.
But it was clear that your personal security and safety was under risk.
Yes, that's quite true. Because whilst in Mansakonko, one day in the afternoon around 3:30, the officer commanding the NIA came in a rush to my residence. He said he had intelligence from the Director General in Banjul that the July 22nd boys in Soma were preparing to come and attack me in Mansakonko.
Yekullo kibaro soto kaboila korda bato Banjul ko July 22nd la molu meni alonko ibe wotundo kan Soma je ana dalo lulaibe pareka ne purkana boyinte kan.
Please give us the names of the NI officer in Mansakonko and the DG at headquarters.
I
wouldn't be able to remember his name. He's a fuller man, but I think it's Mr. Jallo. He was the director of the NIA in Mansakonko at the time. Sorry, the officer commanding the NIA in Mansakonko at the time.
Aseke ngafili atona kontongo mabari ngamira
Mr. Jallo.
Ngamira Mr. Jallo le wotembo atele marta NIA eulula atele mwila nyaton koti Mansakonko tundo ka wotumo.
Who was the DG at headquarters?
Jumali la kuntonkoti ila makama bato.
This was in 1995-96. I wouldn't be able to remember.
Nyimu 1995 kata 1996 sangole kono dal hakilo mamari muta memwela kuntonkoti Director General NIA ila suba kono.
So he said he was assigned to come and provide security for me. I told him I don't want any government security.
Ako ya tebula nyine la pro ayena pro kante kanta fonsi tanka. Nkaya malafi mansakunda la kantari wo kantari la pro kantanka.
He said, but if anything happens to me, he was going to be held responsible. I said, even if I'm going to die, I'll use my blood to vindicate your name. I'll write that it was my decision that I didn't want security.
Ako nyambari ninku kitetela, wairi yentele bula ite kantola. Ha, ni kuketetela woto nte adunobe lala ntele kande. Nkaya hanni mfata. yelo mbewle tala nga safero kala ka itandiko ye itamam fewo fenke nte fango la manya mfango la kango wole nsindi jang hanifo ko ketana mbete seneyandi lale.
I said to him, let me send you back to the same July 22nd boys in summer. Tell them if they are prepared to come, they must equally be ready for burial from 5 p.m. to Isai prayer time. I said, if only they decide to come, let them be rest assured that there will be burial in this place from 5 p.m. to Isai prayer time. So when I told him that inside my parlor, he looked at me, he was stunned, he couldn't say anything. I said, just go and convey that message.
Mbesiri na salo le kono utumo. Ba biringa nyin kuma kangulu faye nkaye nko. Mfana mbete fanan kila o July 22nd molu kang. Afoye ni pareta wairi kweka parele kana boy inte kang. Afoye ni pareta inata. Hanufoye mambo inkandiro bai. Woto be bade o kelale kabo talalulu alansara wato hanifo safo sali wato abebe kela bade oleti. Nsi ifana yo koindi tolo mante fana mbete kila yo kibaro fo itolie.
So Mr. Touray, you're not only a warrior in the courtroom, but also at the battlefield.
I mean, I know as a matter of history that war is all about propaganda. So that was my own propaganda to them.
Ndo ya lon tariko ni tariko lon ya jube. Kelolu be propaganda wale mkuma ba fo ka ferolu fo menu ya lon ko itesi tukuno menu la isi judo menu la. Abebe dendi ngole bala.
That was the end of that episode.
Wokuo banda wale to.
Let's go to your next destination, your next postings. Where was that?
I came to
Bundung, but Bundung was absolutely quiet. This was after all the elections. And there was no trouble around the country.
And
so it was only during the elections that trouble brewed?
No,
that's when they reached their height.
And that would be as a result of political...
Yes. But the life of magistrates in those days, it was... You were permanently confronted with one challenge or the other. So I left Bundung, I went for my bar, I came, I was posted in Basse. Okay, when it was when I was posted in Basse, the people in Basse, the July 22nd, got to know that I was the one who was supposed to go there.
July 22nd la omolu menu beje inata lonko wotumole ko yara yentele nati je fanan yentele samba nam Basse kitibunda la je.
When were you posted to Basse?
What did you mala ye sound di Basse?
This must have been in 1999, 2000, because I spent 14 months in Basse.
Namera kabo 1999 kata 2000 karunga kartan nin nani leke Basse sanji killing karfula.
So Banta Kamara made the delegation, they came and met the Chief Justice and said they didn't want me in Basse.
Banta Kamara ay molu kafunyoma ye molu wulindi kana Chief Justice kang kafayen ko Mansula ntela Basse man lafin naje.
Who was Banta Kamara?
Banta was the chairperson of AFPRC in Basse, and he was a member of the July 22nd. But he was a highly influential person.
Banta le mum July 22nd kafola siran TOTJ wotundo kang adum mole fanamu me yalonko atobota bake ala ko sembo warta ma fangola molu kono.
I think at some point he even became vice president of APRC.
Andu ngamira wati soto ndafang ye palaso di ala me yalonko wole APRC patio nyina president nolanka makamoti vice president.
So they met the Chief Justice and told him, but the Chief Justice told them that, look, we don't have any other magistrate we can post in Basse for now, except Mr. Touray.
Brio for Chief Justice ye. Afana ye jabi nyine la ko ngonko. Nyin tembe magistrate do sotombe men sambara Basse Mr. Touray kola.
At that time, there were a lot of problems in Basse pertaining to the image and integrity of the court itself.
Men tilinta kiti bunda fango lanya ning a Kenya la kulubelari nje nyameng.
And Usman insisted that it was me and me alone who could go and stabilize the place.
Usman fanambalanda akontelamu ntedda manne fanamu moti mensitano je ka kata kakulu tembendi je kelaku.
And why do you think the APRC party were resistant to you coming there?
Manat naite fe APRC la party yo moli be balanko ita manyana tala baje.
Because Banta had this very unfortunate privilege of controlling every magistrate who was posted in Basse, but he knew he couldn't do same with me.
Katu Banta otumo nyinketa koma sayoti magistrate men be kata Basse ikatara bulole kono ateleka kango tamandi ulbe kang bari ate Banta na talon ko ntede ndemu moleti me yalon ko ayodolu maranyame ngate ate kuno lantema.
I've never met him in life before, but from what he has been hearing from people and so on and so forth, in fact, I understand when they came, they asked him in the Chief Justice's office, the CJ asked them, why didn't you want him to be posted in Basse? He said, we understand this man, nobody can manage him.
Katu wato meng itil tatantila okodia mo fangola Chief Justice ya. Atede atemu moleti nte fangona ate kumo nena manyoje wotumo. Nena mambem follow bari la kumodante Chief Justice ye ayenyi ninka ko en ko sang atelu mune mualla balandati muna nal mallafi nyim magistrate la praitara Basse ya jabi men na wolem nyinti ko nga nyin kibaro moyle molem nyinti me ya lonko mo buka malankunno ndunta malankunno la wodalilo le ya sabu mallafa laji.
So he was under the wrong notion that magistrates were supposed to be managed or controlled.
Well, that
was a well-established tradition. It's most unfortunate that if you go to Farafenye, Sambujang had control. If you go to Basse, Banta had control. So there were these power barons all across the country, and every civil servant for that matter, if you go, you must go pay homage to them. So he realized I wasn't going to be the one to be controlled.
Wotembo kube kerimbanko kang nim Farafenye mafangolom Sambujang jang le ebetar la wole la marokoto nim Basselom ebetar la banta kamara la marole koto andungo tembo amanda itella banko falna jama bije molu bije men keta mo sembe malti mo to boringolu inio sembolu be siring itele nyino motako ko kundi nafuta tetella tundo la itella kangole nyanta tamala andung utumo Basse banta nala mole ya lonkonte dun itewole soto no lantela itente malankunno la hanfo e fanglu ya lon walanna itata Chief Justice ya ko man lafin laji.
So finally I went to Basse.
Bitun nata Basse wo kangole kang.
So we were there doing the work
bijembe do ko ke kang
until when one day
folunkiling
my wife called me on the phone and told me that
namuso yankumandi telefono to ay nyim fonye ko
that UDP delegation came there on a campaign.
UDP la kafomolu nata campaign ola je
and somebody was killed.
Andu mo sotonta ye memfa je
and she's been hearing that they will take the matter to court.
Andu abe nyim moy kanko iba ko kito sambala kiti bundale la.
So she told me to be careful.
Akonye bitu isi hakilotu.
Told her I'll do what is right.
Nka mentilinta mbe ole kela.
No matter the consequence.
Aketa ko kundinti tonya mbe tamala wolela.
So I went to Basse.
Ntata Basse.
And 25 people, including the United Democratic Party, were arraigned before me.
Momuani lulu olukono UDP la molu inata wolle londi nyati lingula.
24 members of the UDP and the United Democratic Party was also charged.
Momuani nani ye wolle kalame ke tumi andu inata UDP party o fango fanan charge.
The party itself, as an institution, was charged with a criminal offense.
For his mother, was the 25th accused person, United Democratic Party.
The momuang anin nani le killing tumi imanda woto party o fango mu mewo UDP party o fango mu mewo wole keta muani lulun jangoti ye tumiro la menka.
Can you give us the criminal analysis or the analysis of that on the criminal law?
Isa fonye bang isa fonye no wokol isa temeno ya fonye komenina ta kuja barala la kuoto luala fanala.
As to whether or not a company or an organization can be charged with a criminal offense.
For kasene andi for doku dinkra bunda wala patio isa tumino le ko ay fenne ke mi an kuja balem luala fanala.
Yes, in law you can charge a corporate personality.
Luala Carola, isi bunda ba molu isi tuminole.
When I say corporate personality, means a company or a registered entity. You can charge them with a criminal offense.
Ninko company wolem doku bunda ba wala meya lonko aketa kafuleti mensafeta isi tuminole o kufosongola.
Would you in that process have to lift the veil of incorporation?
For kang inyanta ka fengo bone mi alonko wole ye mura inyanta ko bondile saje se maril nyun tumino banke samba kiti bungoto wala ka tumiri jawla kan ko ku jaw baleke.
No, you can charge them directly without in fact lifting the veil of incorporation. The lifting of the veil of incorporation takes place under civil procedure.
Wo isi tuminole luala silo la satara ima ilawo muraram fano boykang. Wo muraram fano cowboy kang wo kana wati la ning ayatra kota ta futa hanfo silang aketa lankelema koti meya lonko nyin silang kunyanta tamala jele utumo lo isila wo muraram fano bondi.
In that case, you would only be able to fine the company. You would not be able to impose a custodial sentence.
Yes,
I'm ko wodoku bundanyi iseminkeno isafo ene ko nyanta kodole jola bara komita fulano ko besila dulakri wala ye sorom.
Yes, you are perfectly right. But you see, when you charge a corporate personality, you can only do so in relation to corporate matters. For instance, where there is negligence on the part of a body corporate and it has resulted to damage, or where, for instance, fraud has been perpetrated by a corporate body. But a matter pertaining to individual liability, such as murder, I mean, that's not within the corporate responsibility of a company or a registered body. That was just a clear, the highest degree of manifestation of vendetta against the UDP as a political entity.
Mbetembo mento utumo, ni be misali kama bunda ba kitindila. Ibe kitindila nyina kan ni misali kama tinyari keta wala kasara keta wala ku keta amunta kitindi bunda nying ibe duno lala wolle kan andung iduno me ba lale kan kuluro to wolem ibe kolole jola wala ye alaman yo bari bitung italiye ko wulindi nyaming buruka patio fango kumo samani weme yitandi wolem nyinti ko itelu laf ibe kamfarin patio nyin kamale ila fitajulu jo kolengo lala patio kan wala na patio fongo samani.
Was the leader of the UDP party also charged?
For patio nyin kuntonko nyin UDP la patio kuntonko fo ya fana tumile bang.
Mr. Dabo was accused number 1.
Mr. Dabo le mo floti tumiro lata menkan.
So it was one Sergeant Trawale who mentioned the matter before the court.
Ka fo meye Sergeant Trawale wole nyin ko lumemba kitila wole akumo fo kitibunda nyina.
He came and made a submission, very brief, that they have started investigations and the investigations are not concluded.
Anata idea musutu nekije ko yela kisikisirolu damu tale ko nyin kono andu law kisikisirolu mambam folo.
So he also raised the issue that bail murder is not bailable by the magistrate courts.
Ay nyim fanam fojele ko pour ka o molu bail magistrate kitibunda te wolu bail nola.
At that point, Mr. Touray, did you have jurisdiction to actually entertain a murder case?
Mr. Touray, for wato nyin kono wato mina ye wokiti onyi nati nyati wodiamo nati nyati fo wato yesembo sotolo no prise la moy no kiti onyi tanya la bon fe ibe kiti bunda min do fo yesembo sotolo pour ko la moy wokiti la bon.
No, I could not hear the substance of the charge murder before me, but the Criminal Procedure Code had been amended, and if I can remember, I believe it must be around section 285A, wherein power has been conferred on magistrates when a charge is brought before you, i.e. a capital offense, which you cannot prosecute or which you can hear and determine, and the matter is under investigation, power has been conferred on you to remand the accused persons in custody pending the completion of the investigation.
Wotumo falon ketale luala tukundo to o kufa songolo to ndebe tembo mendo wotumo tumiro nyim mem fam fota nte o kisikisinola bari bitunyi sembo ila o falingu me yake wonya woye sembo dinale pour akonyin menu misali kama meni alon ko wolle keta moluti menu ba ko kono misali kama ko mo fa men keta wonya wo molu nseri man no le ke sambari man hanfo jannin ko nyimbe bola nyoto wairi wotembo iko abe kisikisiro bundale to.
Was it preferred by the prosecution or the government at that time to actually make use of that provision to get especially politically motivated detainees remanded in Mile 2 rather than perhaps to go straight to the High Court where bail could be applied for and given?
Fo ikaga min kamba coming kitindir lañu wollem police oldi fo akabo mansala blokono president wala karola pre isaje ko mol mi yalon ko eni mansa dunta nyola politiko la fanal isaje se keno moti mi iso luanyin ta ya landi kan isaje se sindino dulakilim fo wato mi yalon ko isa ibela case nyin saundi la kasamba kiti bato.
Government's drive simply was to secure a remand order against the accused persons. That was their
mansa kunda hammo mu membe tinu ngotumo puruka nyimolu mutake sambari man kasola wala muite langani yoti nundro.
Because at the relevant time there was filed a bail application before the High Court by Mrs. Denton.
Katu tembo abekela tumo mengo yatara Mrs. Denton ay bail kaito dundile foka pare kitibunda batu.
I was then not even aware of that.
Utumo ndema hani bo kala mafang.
So they were competing to get an order remanding the accused persons before any possible granting of bail by the High Court.
Benyosa nyoba sabangole la nungotumo puru isinyumolu sambano riman nyadi janneng wo bail kaito la kango be dunna hanfo janni be londila puru satara itele nyilu dundiri man itel bole nyosa bangola nungotumo.
Because it was also a settled practice of the government at that time that when people are charged with capital offense, they will rush them to a magistrate court, get an order of remand, and even after the High Court would have granted bail, they would still insist, they will still refuse to release them, and they will be justifying the detention on the basis of the order of remand made by the trial magistrate, when in fact the High Court has already granted bail. We had incidents of that nature in the past.
Wotumo kuolu menu kake ninku keta durong men keta o kusangara ni mfasongoluti itelikaka nyosa bangoleti puruka kutama ndi mensi ke dalilo ti puruka nyimolu mutake sorong riman katu ikatara muna nyosa bankang janim bel kaito be dadala kabo kitibunda bala puruka foko kanyimolu bel itelikaka katale hanufo itelio molu dundi riman nin kaito hanin kaito natabo kitibunda bala puruka nyimolu bel ikalo munekang ha wayatarle wotambitale wotarditale wayatarle nyimmolu lako ye dundiriman foka pare andung ila haningani kakawleti pour ka molu mutakasola.
To give the issue of bail some context here, because we discussed the issue of the decree number 1 suspending the constitution. This was after the transition had actually finished and the constitution was back in its rightful position.
Yes, this was in 2000.
Yeah, so therefore there was a right to bail.
2001, yes, I believe, 2001.
There was a right to bail. And
there was a right to bail.
Even in murder cases, unlike what operates today.
Yes, there was a right to bail in murder cases.
Otumo 2001, nyanto bijele, hanimo fa kito, isamari bail nole.
So the whole idea was, because the investigations are not concluded, and I cannot grant bail, it's a subordinate court, I don't have power to grant bail. They thought the only option available to me was to remand them, and I refused.
Wotembo, wairi kitibunda la ko amamfuta auto follow, itella hamo moment nyindro, yenyine lom, yenyine mutakonte, sembe do tenna katu ntebe kitibunda mena omu kitibunda ndimulti. Sembe do tije animfere do tije fonga nyimolu samba riman. Itelebela firin wolela wolana ye kolu tamandi onya tarinke puru nyimolu sitari man jannin kitibunda babe kutamandi leji.
Did you have a discretion to do so despite the law that provided that you should remand them?
Foyo sembo soto le proko ka atara fa loi be lor na mi ya foko nyanta ke sindi dula clean.
Yes, I am convinced I have a discussion because if you look at the law across the Commonwealth, especially in Kenya, you can meet a judge in his house over the weekend and move your bail application.
Ha ngamera otembo nsi okenole katunia jube Commonwealth banko lukang sako banko membe ke Kenya membe ko Kenya isita akitindirla kanne ala bungo fango kono hani wato memmanke doku wato tifang kafo lokum bandula teng weekendo ina ya kacha andu isi kaito dundino me yalonko mu bel kaito leti.
But looking at the statutory provision itself, did that give you room to exercise that discretion?
But say na loi njibe loi min lota fo e wo sembo dila ban priya wo ke ban.
That statutory provision was provided only for situations, and the power was to be exercised only in good faith, not in bad faith.
Sarto membelari waka wole mnyindi ko nimbata mandila abe tamala ngania senu ngania kendole kang bari mota tamandila nyinkanko kuruya ibole tamandila ji wala ngania jawya ite okela ji.
It was not a witch hunting it was not a provision intended for the state to victimize anybody, but it was meant to be exercised. That power was meant to be exercised in good faith.
Kulo me yalonko amanke ko ya wulinyine kama kudo bari bitung wotembo wole mnyinti ko mo manja na bulala mo noma kala bon fenyo noma purka nambara bari bitung hanni ba sarto fananta mandila nyanta kala kusenu ngole kang anengani ya senaya.
But again, under the law, when a matter comes before me as a magistrate, and I don't have jurisdiction over it, I have a power to transfer it to the court having jurisdiction. And that was the power that I exercised. And I referred the matter to the Chief Justice in Chambers to sit over the issue of bail.
Chief Justice la officer to police quota mentally inter bail kuala.
And I expressly ordered that the accused persons be escorted under the command of the officer commanding police, Basse Division.
Anonganyin kangole fanandundi nyola je ko nyimolu ni be sambala mosi samba mensi kanta me yalonka bekela alifala kangole kam memu officer commanding Basse tundo la police bunda la karola.
And I also further ordered
that
they be taken to Banjul police station, be detained there overnight. I further ordered him to bring them before the Chief Justice in Chambers the following morning. And I further ordered on no account should they be detained in Mile 2 prison or in any other location other than Banjul police. Because I knew that they would not have been tortured in Banjul police. The general public would have had access to them. At every time of the day or night. So the following day I was sacked again.
Mr. Touray, indeed you were able to be very creative with the law as a magistrate, it seems, and you were able to use the gaps and the lacuna in the interest of victims and to secure justice rather than applying the law strictly in a technical sense.
Yes, because if you are right, if you look at the setting in Basse at that time.
Mr. Touray, wotembo ikata moti menyamenta afereta akalango warata.
I believe
lawo sartolu menu yelandi yesilo lu sotolebe dunne kono nyamen kan ngojing kela quota mandi luani ntilum kan hanu foyete lafta e kenya menga yo silota bari sedo fana ya jabinyina kai wotembo aha.
If I had exercised the other option of remanding them,
ninga nyin kando ta purke sambari man,
I would have been a charlatan in the society today. Because the setting in Basse, the climate of fear and intimidation was too great. And there was no opportunity how they could have gone to Janjambure without any one of them or all of them being tortured.
Satara itelukono hani mo kilinti je mamenta jire ya wala ka fo itelu mo besi tanka tajire yama wotakela nung fereti je foi bulo elar kilinkang wala ye beta jire ya.
So that warranted your second dismissal?
Wala ya nate by the Fulanjang.
Yes.
And this time did you escape? Did you come back? This time did you have a chance to petition the president and come back to the judiciary?
You want to do for another silo to the Bruca Sefer Kata President Kang, Bruca Murun and Judiciary Bank, Kitty Dulato?
No, as a matter of fact, Justice Lati, who was the Chief Justice at the time,
Justice Lati, Chief Justice Otembo,
prevailed on me to write a petition. And there was so much pressure on government also. They were going to yield, in my humble opinion.
And Wodumo Yamansakunda Fanan detendide, ye detendi bake hanufo, atata findiko e fanalu si sonno le kolula puru nte la ntaram fambulo kama.
But I was not interested in continuing on the bench.
Bare amanna kenna la fonna koti purunga continue kiti tamando la wo bunda la bench nyinto.
I remember many of my friends and brothers called me to congratulate me, and one of them happened to be Baba Galejalo, whom I met this morning here. And when he called me on the phone, he told me, "Congratulations for your redemption."
Hakilo baka ntero lu nkafunyolu mo jamalu yen kumandino tumo kan konton kan jay fanan kolu lanya kama andugol kono mo kilimbije me yalon ko ka fayne babagalle jallo ala yake biñin sumanda fango na benta jang andum biringa yen kumandino ayen kontonne ayen jay akonye puru ila kolu lanya kama.
So your dismissal in essence was a blessing in disguise.
It was. It was indeed, because the government would have been compelled, because the magistrates also had an emergency meeting and they were going to take a position if I was not reinstated back, and they couldn't have contained the situation. But I just decided that the time is up, I have to be on my own.
Akatano nyame wotumo bengo keta ko kamale dia molu keta kato dumo nyaton ko dolbije men yalon ko leftal num fango pour ye ben ya ko dia mu puru yente murundi barbitun tele nata jube nko amansi o beto ndenga ko tujele drongam fonyo wole mun de la kairoti wodadi lole ya sabu nga ko tutulaje.
But the case of Mr. Dabo brought 3 changes in the law.
Bari Mr. Dabo la ko ay falin sabale nati loi la karola.
And that answers one of your areas of concern, legislations which have been passed to stifle the rights of the citizenry.
Wo ay lañinin karo fanna do jabile wala ñinti ko wo fanna kilimbi jeme yalon ko ka molu da soron menna wala ka molu da suki loi la karola pour ñin kamala etelu si sa wosoto wolula ayo bunda falin.
The Criminal Procedure Code was amended 699.
Andung kukurungulu tamandi kiti bunda nyim fanang falingo keta jele 699.
The right to bail was taken away in respect of capital offenses.
Inata bail ko bondi yow buruka ka foko ning amari kujaw baleke kujaw kuntonko e ka fome capital offense wala mo fa na nyon doluti bail rote keno la yow bondi je bail ko bondi wol konole.
By this time, Mr. Dabo and his team were already granted bail by the High Court.
Bari obekela tumo mengo yatra Mr. Dabo na la kafo molu High Court ye bail di wala tumo.
So we are still faced with that problem. If you are charged with murder or manslaughter now, you don't have bail.
Hanimbide wokole yako ben kanjanne hanimbi katabula bila niye mutamo fala ite bail no la hanimbi wala beloring.
So that particular section 99, was designed to actually prevent Mr. Dabo and Co. from getting bail from the court.
That's quite true.
Was it passed before the application for bail came up, or the ruling, or after?
Fakata wati juma kabrin kuntundiro kada foko paralembang fo kabrin kuntundiro kerin kola.
It came after bail was initially granted by Justice Monahan.
Anata wato mengo yatara Justice Monahan ye bail kango di nyilile foka pare. Ukola long yin kaunata.
There was then a pending appeal before the Gambia Court of Appeal against the ruling of Justice Monahan.
Andu wotumo balango be dending wo bail kunyala kitibunda bato kabalang Justice Monahan la wo bail kuola.
The state succeeded in that appeal.
Bitum mansanata silo sotone wo sainkandiroto.
But the justices of the Court of Appeal again tied the hands of the state not to re-arrest and detain the accused persons. The respondents in the appeal. That's Mr. Dabo and his group.
Kitindila mbeje woto fanana ka umentama ndi wala mnyentiko ikana wo kudendi ngo jindi na waira be dendi ne follow purunyin kamala Mr. Dabo na kafunyolu ikanana wolu sainka muta ni ebula ke bel ni ebula.
Okay. The other aspect of the law that it affected was on jury trial. The 1997 Constitution provided for jury trial.
1997 Constitutional. When kanin ne ko kito dul se kenole jury trial wala mo jama kasi ka kito kundu.
I remember when Mr. Dabo and his co-accused persons were arraigned, they refused to take their plea because they said they needed to see the law that was going to be enacted on jury trial.
Biri telunati Mr. Dabo na la molu ibalanta katu muneketa ikoy lafta lonnale lua nying membe akonyin koma abelari nyadile menketa jama kitindo la karolati ikafome jury trial.
That also delayed the commencement of the trial in the murder case itself.
Wala fanana take kuti wala wo balango wala kolu dukundi wala ka mendi puru kito nying menketa wo mofa kito nying janabe datila ay watita.
And what was the essence of that particular amendment?
So amona kuma ta wo falindro mi alonko lefta kolaga muna akumandi.
The Constitution provided for a right to it gave a right to accused persons to opt for jury trial. That was a constitutional provision.
Constitutional in somebody molulale pour isinyin kaning pour ni bela ko kitila asike mo jama kito mo jama sisi akito kunna ka fome jury trial. Constitutional yo somebody molulale men ba mutokon.
So but then it further went on to state that Parliament should prepare the enabling legislation.
Mari continent kanyum foko député bu nyanta fere kelale ye loi dada me ya lonko wala be kala kulu sono ya ndirawti wo sarto la karola.
That law had not been enacted by the time the accused persons were arraigned before the High Court.
Wo loi woyatara amang lodla sotom follow dame ya lonko isa tamandinu na okiti bundala ite lakoto wo tembo.
Like I said, that delayed the commencement of the trial for a while. I'm not very sure, but I have a feeling that there was an amendment that came. I have to confirm that.
But whatever the case, it's clear that jury trials do not actually operate in the Gambia as we speak.
But the call sela no nyanya dorong alonta la senya telefona ko coming ka kitindira jama me bendi pro yemo kitindi na kuntundiro ka umu feneti mi alonko abuka kenyim banko kanyang.
We used to have jury trial. But along the line it was taken out.
Neneka kitindiro kele nungo nyama. Bari bitum bewole kanun wati na soto ya mumeo bondi ya buruka.
But it was brought in by the 1997. It was brought back by the 1997 Constitution.
Bari 1997 Constitution wale ya murundina.
But it was not in practical operation because as we speak right now, it is not something that actually operates in the court system, in the criminal justice system.
That I cannot capture exactly, but there was an amendment. But it was given as a right under the 97 Constitution.
hakilo mamuta wati men kilimu bari 1997 constitutional ya dabula ndi okono lenu.
And would you say that that was also another amendment that was used by the political system to influence or exert greater control over the judicial process, because they could control one man easier than they could control, about 20-something or 30-something people, depending on the size of the judicial.
That's quite true. But there was also equally a potential danger. Unless the law was made or was enacted, you stand to your detriment if you opt for jury trial, and then you have a group of July 22nd boys being paraded as jurors before a court.
Wofanang, as a keno le barikudo memfanambeje, ni manna manta bengo soto. Wo moja malu menu bina kafokete la kitoke. Ni immantalu walita itemariye, July 22nd la molu nata na beng menge ya lonko. Iko, wole bete la kito kundula. Bituode, uvekela kumbaneleti.
Mr. Touray, let's move on.
Mr. Touray, will continue.
To the 2006 court-martial cases, I believe you were representing some clients in that particular court-martial.
Ngata 2006, kiti o mialonko wale keta sojaro la kiti bungoto. Nteji kita ko, ite keta multi mialonko ilota moyene pruka fasa ka bondi ya tumi minna.
If we could just go through it briefly, highlighting the issues there of fundamental human rights, violations of human rights, for example, torture and the right to fair hearing.
Anduna telefona soti yandiri kamba ise dungo fanala ye domandi mfonya je ya soti yandi komi nyantol tinyata je nya hadma dungo la nyanto ya tinyanya dile wo kiti bungo nyinto.
Following the 2006 abortive coup.
In 2006 coup d'etat bayring of Botala.
The civilians and the soldiers were all charged and they were arraigned before the High Court.
Civilianolu and soldierolu ye betumi ye lon the High Court nyatelimula.
The trial in the High Court got stalled because many of the defense counsel withdrew their representation.
Kito nyin tamata nyame High Court anasita katu mo jama bije meni alonko be lorin tankola karolela woliye dabondi je muruta koma.
Why would defense counsel have cause to withdraw their representation for clients that they had agreed to represent?
Monad na sa loyal mialan ko lota purka mol bondi ye mol mi aye 2 mille ye nasi kota ya foko e manta lola purka wol lo wol ye kota ye 2 mindi ko mina monad na obekela.
We had a perception that the judge who was assigned the file had a sympathy for the state.
Ndel nga nyina miro sotono tumo ko jojo wala kitindila me ya lonka belori mansa kundaye wo nyina ba nga nyoto pour ka mansa kunda fasa.
Which judge are you referring to?
Omukiti tela jumaldi.
This was the former DPP and then he later became Chief Justice Chief Akomaye Ajim.
Ngamira utembo ka fome Chief Akomaye Ajim wole moti me ya lonka martanyin kito lulanya la ngamira utumo wole nyanta lola akito nyin kunto.
In all fairness to him, he hadn't manifested anything to warrant us reaching that conclusion.
Tonya purka tonya tamandi amang kukede mensi utaman sero itandin telula ko alafta fasa rolela.
But taking from the fact that he was the DPP for 2 consecutive terms.
Bari ni ajube ataketa DPP ti hanu for sanji fula mume obe.
It was like getting a prosecutor to be a judge in your case.
Amunta kitindirla niyo ta yake ko wale be kito fanan kuntu laitla ko nyin kono.
So because of that long career as DPP and his closeness with the executive, we had fears that the accused persons may not get justice.
Nsilata kadumuna nsilandi anem banko kundonko la kulu katata nyola bake andu wokola fanang anatake moti memeta o palaso to DPP palaso so wale nsilandi nga nyimutako nyimmolu ate yamfale.
Mr. Touray, I mean, you do say that you didn't have any cause to believe that he would be impartial in the case, but if you look at his track record as DPP, if he had exercised independence during his role as DPP, I don't think defense counsel would have been so anxious about his current position.
coming iya fo nyame ko coming am ife amanke modi mi alon ka be lala bu albo monyo doka wala be lala mokan bar coming niya jibi ala tariko to kabri wato mi alon ko akata DPP ta abe mol kitindi kan niya jibi kabri wato fo bi fo se ku bonino le kaitandi la ko asefa saro ke no le ba.
Yes, like I was saying, if you look at the general setting in the country at the time,
kumba fokan nyame ni ko lulanya jube kenema banko kan wotembo,
although we were seemingly democratic quote and unquote,
yo bari bitu tumo menka fo ani menka yitandi wala nyindi ko democracy lebe banko kan,
but in reality it was a dictatorship.
Bari to nya tajire mararo lebe kerin nungo tumo,
and the dictatorship that came
adungo tajire mararo anata kenyama
post-elections was worse than the dictatorship that we had during full military dispensation.
Wole fon jawyata tajire ya mararoti wakarte fayo kola ka tambi wato la wato me yalonko abe otumbo hani karte fayo nyim fon manke folo.
Because he had a long career as a DPP and he had interacted with the state for a very long time, he has defended the interests of the state. So we had a fear that it was all not safe for him to be assigned the case.
Katotembo, ame bata o palaso tole o DPP palaso, amanda wola anim mansakunda meta nyobulu bakele sako mansakunda kundonkolu. Wodalilo le silango dundintel kono ko woto nyimu moleti me yalonko. Ate tilingo tamandi la nyin safar bundala abe palaso menduteng ako wotumo birin tilingo silango soton sondomo kono bitungole ya kendidal ndel fanala nga quota wo nyama.
So we raised concerns and we asked him to recuse himself. He refused. So we met as a defense team and decided that some members of the defense team should withdraw just to paralyze the hearing of the matter.
Bitundal kafta nyoma kallo ka fonte lebe lolan te lebe kala loyalty nyim molie yo bitunga kata puru ate safan da bondi kito nyin kono bari bira balanta ndol fanal nata lo bitum menu be loring mutamole nga jibe puru modol fanal bije ye da bondi kito nyin to puru kito nyin silamfu isaje asilamfu nyama me ya lonkatina ate tamanola.
So the state could not proceed with the matter because of lack of lawyers.
Bitum man sakunda man kito nyin tamandino katu man lawyer sotong.
And that was a requirement in capital offenses.
Yes, you cannot proceed to hear a charge against an accused person who is charged with treason unless he is legally represented.
Otembo lawyer nyina foko etembo kitindino la meya lonko lawyer mantara caring mensi lo no atemari ye man sakunda te o mari kitindino la onyama otumo. So because
of the withdrawal of the defense, most of the defense team, the case stalled in court. So they were therefore forced to sever the case filed into two. They took the soldiers to the army barracks, that is Yundum, and created a court martial.
Between Atamuleke, ye ko fata fulat. Sojaro lumembe ko kono yolu samba Yundum, purke kitin di sojar silola. Otomalu yola ko sam landi karala.
Were you in both cases, in the treason trial at the High Court and the court martial?
I participated both in the treason trial and both in the court martial and in the treason trial.
Don kito nyim fanna fulo benga be male. Sojar kitindo la karola ndabi jele. Ibe kitindi la jamfa jawla tumo men la kabanko jamfa treason ndabe otole fana menketa moluti civilian oluti yemenu kitindi akokama.
I represented Yaya Dabo in the court martial.
Ndele lota Yaya Dabo ye sojar kitindo nyinto.
And I represented Aliou Job in the treason in the High Court.
Alu ndele lota Aliou Job ye fana High Court.
Were Were there any things that stood out during the trial, especially in terms of the treatment of the accused persons?
Fo fembi jel mi yalon ko isafa ko wo katala na manya nakake sakatuma nina ta fanna la mi yalon ko wala multi ye mil tumi fo ye kukela mi yalon ko manya nakake.
During the pre-trial detention.
O wato ya tara fangi me samba folo kiti bundato.
Ibe
mutokon.
Yes. Yeah, double. We went through, when they attempted to tender his cautionary statement, we went through a voir dire because it was our contention that the state cautionary statement was not voluntarily obtained. They were seriously tortured. So we went into a voir dire.
Nata kito la nyame
It's a trial within a trial.
Because me voir dire wolem kiti be kiti kono. Nata osilo leta katun tata muneje ya dabo utumo ngajele ko ye tajire ya bale kala ku dimendingo abe okole kono ngutumo wodalilo le ya sabo koni nanta na ta nyamin ngake woleti kiti be kiti kono mfanali ngata mandi wole silola.
And the voir dire trial, which is a trial within a trial, was to test the voluntariness of that particular statement to see whether it was obtained, through torture or other forms of duress or undue influence.
Andu niaje aliyewo kiti be kiti kona aliyake wo alafta ka lonne wo kuma kongol mi yalon ko ya wole ta wo mo min bulu ye min tumi ya safi alafta ka lon komi wo kuma kongo tabul nyamo fo ya tabul de to kono bang abe ya detendile ya ta wala fo ya lipale fo ya tajire ya al kiti o lafta ka wala long wala na ko kiti nga kiti o ke kiti o kono kote.
Yes, that was the main purpose for a voir dire.
Wala ma dalilo tide pour ka kiti be kiti kono.
And Yaya was the first to go through voir dire.
Yaya lo mo foloti mendunta o kiti fason kono kiti be kiti kono.
What was the strength of his case in terms of his allegations of torture against the state?
Kuma atala diamoni a sembo soto nyale komi ya tumi romin nanu.
I wouldn't be able to remember now the details, but his testimony, I believe, lasted for 4 days.
Hakilo ta akobe mutanola tamata nyami. Barala kito atatal hanfo til nani.
And because we had fear that the rest of the other accused persons may not have the same opportunity, his evidence was not limited to him in person alone.
Katu man silo sotono kafuta dolu makatu atela kito kono sede yari kolu menu finteta je amandanga te fango kungo dam manade.
Every form of torture, every form of violation, every form of abuse was captured in his narration.
Ala kuma kangolu kono tajire ya faso wo faso nyimantani ya faso wo faso tilimbali ya faso wo faso kujawo ke hadamadingu jatola a faso bele fintita ala diamo kono yemenke ala bringa e bewo muto kono.
Looking at your client and some of the other accused persons, was it clear, was it apparent just by looking at them that they had been indeed tortured?
Nina ta wotu mol jibe anita fongo momi ala ko belori wole fonia mari jibe do re salon no le ko nyinde to nya bulo matala ba.
Yes, indeed. In fact, as at the time when they were arranged, some of them had their injuries. They had not completely healed.
Katu mune natake hani watu memfongo mbenyin dia mola ni ejube kajele ko nyil molu be mantoro le kono be baramaring katu yatara imahani kende ya fango folo.
I believe Wasakamara came here and testified before the TRRC.
Ngamira Wasakamara nata jana sede yaro ke TRRC nyati lingulo jam.
Wasa was able to pick his broken teeth, in the NIA, in the hall where they were tortured. He had it in his pocket and it was tendered as an item of exhibit in the trial.
Kito kono Wasakamara anyingo men katita watu me be nyininka ka ye tajire ya men kela hanufo ya nyingo kati atatala jifo kono le adum watu membe o kito keka wo sojar kito aya nyingo fango bondile alaw nyin katiringo ka ke sede jorangoti kito nyin kono.
We even subpoenaed for the medical record of the treatment, the medical treatment they were subjected to as a result of the torture. And the doctors were willing to come to provide that evidence, but there was state interference in that also.
Na nyim fango kani me ya lon ko wolle mu lopitan kayto luti docteur oli menu safe ñi molié birew tajire nya jawo kela ye man torol nim baladimengulu menu soto adon docteur ol fogolu paretale wulita pour kana o CDRO ke bari ko take man sakunda ya dabula je kunduta docteur ol nyato pour ol kana na o CDRO la.
How did the state interfere in that process?
When we prepared our subpoena and sent it to RVH, the place was punctuated by the NIA officers who were there. They physically threatened them that whoever produces those... In fact, the doctors ended up not coming to court. Threatening them not to come to court.
Pour doctorol yena wo ko senendi min fon keta fon il wo doctorol nyin ketol min be bulu kay tande ko tonya nyine keta wi wasa ya nyungo wutole ya lipala nyungo be bota da kono ye silandilo fon ko karo e ko momo nata kiti bundato pour kana wo se diandro du ibe bula ngata kono.
How did you come to know about this particular information?
When we file our subpoena, you know very well as a practicing lawyer, when you file a subpoena, you make a follow-up on it.
Abengana wasida safe ifanga alone ko kul katama nyame ninga atara nyikusiwa bekere ne safero ka puruka ko no masara.
I personally followed this issue at the RVH.
Ndafam kunde mo bulata nyiko nyi no ma lopitan baro.
And they told us that the NIA came there and took those files away.
And we même fanyi wala mnyindi ko NIA na rajala no yenyi file ol tala ni tata.
Did the voir dire succeed in the end?
For kiti bula kiti kono fanata na beneno bang.
Well, the cautionary statements of all of them were admitted in evidence.
Kiti onyi video nyi kono ila kumaka onyi mensa fere da kiti ulbeta la dundi la fere sere jaro kande.
And that means it did not succeed.
No, it did not.
Despite the clear evidence of torture in those
it was visible on their bodies.
So in fact, defense counsel had valid fears about the particular judge in that case.
Well, that's quite true.
Can you tell us what happened in the court martial in relation to your client, Yaya Dabo?
You know, we were all sure they were going to be convicted. Right, but then there was an open discriminatory treatment. This was a court martial. This was a treason involving people from every sector of our society. By that I mean all the tribes were involved. During the course of the court martial, 4 of the accused persons were being chained, that is handcuffed, that is Bunja, Yaya Dabo, Farin Sanyang, and Wasa Kamara. We have Bunja, Yaya, Farin Sanyang, and Wasa Kamara. Well, the discrimination was quite apparent. We complained about it. Justice Ajim made an order that it's unlawful, it's not right.
Justice Ajim narana kango di tuonyala nyung mukul deme alonko amanyang andung nyantatinyala.
These 4 individuals you mentioned, which tribe did they belong to?
All 4 of them were Mandinkas. So people from all other tribes were part of the trial. It was a large group.
Our
understanding is that it was the head of the army who insisted that those people must continue to be chained.
And this was not coincidence this time?
No.
In fact,
I remember at that time we raised the issue. Ajim made a statement that he has made his order, but if the authorities are not going to comply with it, he does not want to take it as an issue.
Hakilo bakang sinya sabando na ko ni wosi dala ko take bare jojo ni mem ajimti ay mem fo wala minti ko manto nun ay kango dile bare sila ni nyaton kol man ni ay kango men di ni nyaton kol man kanta manda ko nyindo rata ku do keno la je ko tek.
And during the actual proceedings themselves, were they still chained?
But for what na kiti onyi fon datita be keren fo hani wo ye blol city labang.
No, they would chain them in the vehicle according to them in mile 2.
But it only meant for all in the Morocco, no Cabon and Casibumba, the Bull chain, no Walter Morocco, no?
And then they will bring them up to Yundum Barracks.
If you're not like for Yundum La Soja Cordado,
they escort them inside the officers' mess where the court martial was taking place.
Sinana is somebody officers' mess to Diamond Alonco, Kitty on Yingatake or Bunginako.
And thereafter they will remove the cuffs.
Jeto is in a Bulu chain, Chenny Bull,
When the matter is adjourned, they will again cuff them in the court and then escort them.
Ning Kitty on Ya Lunga Sound, the Cotangato is na ye Bulu chain a Kotake, ye tentendi ye Bulani Morola Kotanke.
And criminal trials in the Gambia are usually done in public, is that correct?
No yalanja nibe mol kitin la mialanko yo kuja o leke ikake mol lekono.
Can you tell us if anything unusual happened in this particular case?
Yes, on the day of the judgment, as a matter of fact, the whole conduct of the proceedings was done in the open.
Ko anyanta nu nyame ko sikitio nyimbe ala tamon tribulo nyimbe keta nyama be keta jamala kono kumanu.
On the day of the judgment, I was the first to arrive. When I reached, they said we were supposed to wait under a tree. So the arrangement was that they wouldn't allow members of the press and members of the families of the accused persons. So I said, if that is the situation, we will boycott the judgment. And after the delivery of the judgment, we will make a statement to condemn it.
Do you know why they took that particular position on this particular day?
From what we understand is that it was the head of the army who was interfering. Because he had a sense of apprehension what would be captured in the content of the judgment.
Who was the head of the army at that time?
It was my own brother, Lantombo.
His full name, please.
It's Lantombo Ntamba.
And he obviously took direct orders from Jame.
Yes, of course.
Okay. How did that end?
Well, we maintain our ground that we will not enter the judgment hall unless all the pressmen who were present were allowed access. And same with members of the families of the accused persons. So they thought we were going to give in, but to their disappointment, we stayed put. When they realized that time was running out, they said now, well, they will allow members of the media to come in. They invited us to go. We still again refused. He said family members must all be allowed in.
They
said they were not going to do so. We refused to go in. In the final analysis, they were making calls, Office of the President, Army Headquarters. They had no choice. They had to allow everybody.
And
judgment was delivered. But after the delivery of judgment,
bare kiti onye bring akuntiringo kola
we filed our appeals.
ntolngan na murunkandi kiti onye purunga murunkan ka korosi kuke.
We followed
You
on the
didn't
record.
tell us whether the judgment was successful or not.
Ima fo mole fo kiti te nya natana labanya dile.
They were all convicted.
Etol be soronne.
And they were given different sentencing.
Andung ye be soronne nyala me alon ko ifatatale wato lebe be melala ifatatale.
Some on some counts life imprisonment, some 20 years.
Dolbe siole dangol kilaje dolbe sanji monne kala kasoto.
So we filed our appeals.
Ngana appeal of dundi safe nga file.
And I strenuously followed on the records, the appeal records.
Hanin kabi o apilo nyi murunkan kesi kiti o nyi ngambulata saferol no ma killing.
The file could not be seen anywhere.
File o nyi amanje no handing kira killing.
Not anywhere in the judiciary.
Kiti bunda nyi do handing kira killing file o nyi
made
manje.
a personal follow up on this with the judge advocate.
Jojo nyi me alon ko atele lori nyi kiti o kunda nyi kuna nan kunya kola no bulata no kan purka nyini.
He told me he has nothing to do with the file. On the day he delivered judgment, he gave all the records to the army.
Ako atamang fensora be menkele nyi file bala file nyi lungo men na judgment kiti o kunto nyi ya karang wolungo nyi ya case file nyi ta ya di sojaro la nyaro.
I wrote letters.
Letter roll safe.
Number of times.
Sinya jama.
Made follow-ups.
Ngambulata no kan.
Nothing happened.
Were you able to proceed with a substantial appeal without those records?
No, we couldn't.
Ani ma okay no mambula no case nyon no purunga no masara nga jube kadu mamfenyi.
Not one single appeal was heard.
Ani appeal killing murunkan kiti killing manke akoji.
To now we have not set an eye on that file.
Ani kabimbe mbitilo mendo file onyi nyake so mamlo aka.
And in fact, their constitutional right to appeal was violated.
Certainly.
Nyi muila ila nyanto tinyata puru nyinkama puru case nyinku ila kidia mo puru ay murunkan jube ku ila nyanto tinya wotole.
But that was not into the government at the time.
Bari o mans o jamma sakunda jamano lo nyimmanke kuti itolbulu watola.
Thank you very much.
Abalaka.
Mr. Touray, there was another case in which you handled where, as a consequence of certain decisions, a particular high court judge, I believe he was a magistrate then, made, he was dismissed.
Mr. Touray, malam fo hakilo baka na bara diamu do keta no kiti bunda to mi alan ko eda keta je wo wato wo mari nying wo munyin kiti ndila dingol la te ka fo e magistrate to amanke no jojo te folo inata na baya la do ko la fo se fem fo no nya wota ba.
Yes, that was the case of IGP versus Keba Conte and Seku Conte.
Wala case di me yalon ko police le ba kono aning Seku Conte Keba Conte to le bo case ni kono.
But let me say before I proceed with that, there was a lot of interference even in civil matters.
Baru nga kumandim fo jandim be ñu mo fulo la case fola folo ku jamal el be jame alon ko dabula jamal el be jame alon ko kake mo damal da case to dabula jamal la kake akoni to.
It was the order of the day. When you have a matter, a dispute with someone, you just go to any one of these generals.
Ina mun ko nyi tamandiri nyati no jamano lanu ni moye ku lanyo bula nyote madrom e kam ngaro e kata nyi nyato ka kunton ko le kan surtout nyi tanko bunda molla.
And they had no hesitation, they will interfere in the matter.
Andun ku buka hani tongu fang ike dabula ko nyi kono la.
The case of the Conte brothers.
Nyi kontom fulol nyi.
They bought a set, it's their younger brother, one Abdullah Conte. He bought a parcel of land from one Abdullah Cham in Sukuta. They went through the transfer process. Apparently, unbeknown to the two brothers, the transfer document had not been completed. The transfer procedure had not been completed. When they bought the transfer forms, they paid the relevant capital gains tax. They thought that was all about the transfer process. So they took the transfer document and kept it. But it was in the same year of the purchase that they fenced the land. More than 10 years down the line, Abdullah Cham came to the site and said that he did not sell to them all that parcel of land.
Ning Abdullah Cham ning anata keno nyi dingira nyi to ako amon nyi keno nyi dingira yemen be sanzang amo wafi ima.
And the fencing took place
sanzandiro keta
in the year of the purchase.
Sango men na firo keta.
And when they were about to commence fencing work, according to them, they invited him to come to the site for him to confirm that this was the piece of land that he sold to them.
Ya bunyato kumandile ati Abdullah Champur ay nama be dingiranyi ndo pour kay tandala fo ya fay ko dingiranyi fele me wafi ma andum fele bina damu dal pour ka sansang.
So when he raised those queries that these people have fenced more than the fair area that he sold to them,
biring atena na kumaka nyim fundinde ada kono ka fo ko nyimolde ale dulale sansa me alon ko ntenga me wafa al tambitale.
He went ahead and knocked down part of the fence. So they lodged a complaint against him at the police. Police went into the matter. They charged him. They took him to the court. When they were taking him, they did not notify the complainants. He went to court and he pleaded guilty. He was cautioned and discharged. The complainants in the meanwhile did not even know that a trial took place. So he then went and filed a civil case against them.
In
the magistrate court. It was in the magistrate court that the two complainants in the criminal charge came to realize that, in fact, their criminal complaint reached the court and was determined.
What magistrate dealt with the criminal complaint?
I cannot remember now on top of my head because, like I said, the complainants did not know of the trial. It was my humble self who tried to trace the close file. We photocopied it, and it was in the file that I confirmed that yes, he has actually been taken to court and he pleaded guilty. I cannot now remember who was the magistrate. But Abdullah Cham did not pursue the civil case. It was struck out. Now with the backing of some people, he went to lodge a complaint at the police. He said the transfer documents that the Conte brothers had, those documents were forged. So the police looked into the matter. They charged the two Conte brothers. And let me say this, that Abdullah Conte, who bought this land, was not charged. And the sale took place in his presence. It was his elder brothers, one of whom had custody of the document. It was those two elder brothers who were charged. So matter started in Brikama Magistrate's Court. After the close of the prosecution's case,
Who was the magistrate involved? Sorry.
the file kept changing from one hand to the other. I remember at the beginning it was Manyima. who I think got appointed by the GRA. But then subsequently it came into the hands of Magistrate Jaita as he then was.
What was his first name, Magistrate?
He's now a judge of the High Court. So he looked through the file after my no case submission.
Just explain what a no case submission is in summary.
No case submission simply is that when the state brings a charge against a person,
no case submission niangwe tu abukangro wala ni mansa la karola waranto mende tumiro de mokangda ni ara tumiro nati na mokang kitidlato.
And the witnesses for the prosecution have all testified.
If
you consider in your mind that if not made out a prima facie case,
what is a prima facie case?
Prima facie case is to lead evidence linking the accused persons to the offense.
Prima facie case
so you can ask the court to dismiss the charge.
So in essence, the prosecution had not met the minimum requirement in terms of the evidence that they were required to produce for that case.
Amunta prosecution wolem police warando mansala karola itolman kuma hakan sahare ngodi kiti onyati no memba sababu la ko pour kiti e la ko nyintu molde tumiro mel kan ye asorata ikanne.
Well, that was our application. Sometimes you succeed on it, but sometimes it's dismissed.
Wala muntu la danir dade wato do ika safaro kel danir la kiti obul wato do ika ganyele bar wato do ika boyle.
So when his worship Jaite went through the file, he discovered that in fact this land is not situated within the jurisdiction of Brikama Magistrate.
Oh, wato la his worship Jaite biringa tata enyim file kono be jube aya yele anata na kala mutani ko tonya nyinke no nyim memfa alon ko abe diamo kono kenele abe dingiral to me alon ko amandra Brikama la kiti bunda dingira kono.
So he struck out the matter.
Anata na case nyim
he was sacked.
Ya bay
he was arrested.
Ya muta.
Detained.
Yeah, Cindy Blackly.
He was himself charged.
Sorry?
He was himself charged.
Did this kind of thing ever happen before to a magistrate where they were arrested, detained, charged?
As
a direct result of the decision that they made during the course of their duties.
Do ko nyin kono me alon ko wala mu da do ko tamadiri nyaade na nyin ko le ka fo kula me alon ko akela ba.
Yes, it was a common practice
to
sack magistrates.
Okay,
but to go to the extent of actually arresting them, detaining them, and charging them.
But funny honey ka bi man down go to ke by kata fo ka ike muta ke sinde dula killing ika tumiro le kan.
I think that started in the case of his worship Jaite.
Ngamiro damu tata his worship Jaite la watu mem amuwoti.
But there was a second, there was a repeated incident also.
But haninka bi murunka kudo fana ngere melan ko amurunkanta keta.
One of our traveling magistrates in Jareng.
Na magistrate do beje mena kiti tela do beje melan ko akatama la kata dinkiralto membe nyu Jareng.
Magistrate Danso.
Ikafa magistrate Danso
was also arrested.
Adafana ina na ya mutale.
Detained.
Ya sindidlo killing.
And charged.
Ye tumiro le denga kangoda.
In fact, his detention.
Andung hanika bi ala muto ka sindidlo killing fa.
Came during the impasse.
Aketa wati la watu menda politiko hata jube hata jiri mbake mbangku kanja wolem December.
It was after Jame's departure.
Andung aketa nyame wolem kabrin ja Jame banko bula.
That he was released from detention.
Watu le ya bula ka bondi mudokono.
Do you remember the case of Magistrate Jabang?
Foi hakilo si ha Magistrate Jabang fanan na ko mutanova.
Yes, I believe he too.
Jikita ta fananta.
Forgotten about, but I think a similar incident. He was not charged, but he was detained.
Can we just look at the last case because I'm sure the commissioners want to go home before we wrap it up. Of the NIA Diamond case.
Silanga ke NIA law lulu case ni ngau jube ba.
The NIA Diamond case.
NIA law lulu ki kole aw nying.
I got the tip of the information.
Nga kibaro le sota kono.
From one Nafi Jamme.
Mo kilimbulu ga fme Nafi Jamme.
Nafi, I believe was his Touray testifes. He's from Kanilai.
Nafi de njikita ko abari musulema te me alon ko ya jame bari musola ndunga bota Kanilai.
But he happened to have known Dr. Alamin.
Bari aketa Dr. Alamin ay along.
One day in the evening.
Lunkiling ularo.
She called me to inform me that doctor has been arrested.
Ayan kumandi kan kala mutandi nyinna ko doctor de ya mutale.
By the NIA.
Andu menu ya muta wallam NIA.
So she told me that he has been seriously tortured.
Akbara anyim fonyala ko yew ya tajire ya bakela de.
And that she was afraid that if I did not get up quickly,
andu nga konya ko na be silare nyinna ninga tarante mawuli tariyarinke.
He could lose his life.
Asikeno ayfo ala balwala.
This was in the night.
Nyiketa sudolla.
I told her, well, call me in the morning following day tomorrow. As a matter of fact, when I went to office, this was on a Saturday, I forgot about doctor's issue. So Nafi gave me a reminder call. I quickly rushed to the NIA. When I arrived, I insisted that I wanted to see Dr. my client. I was just arriving when they were closing their main gate. I held onto the door of the gate. The gentleman told me that I couldn't see him. I told him I must see him. If I cannot see him, I was going to petition the Vice President as head of the Security Council to raise my concern.
President no lanko memala Vice Bankola Vice President besa fero kela me tumala men atelbe marlen kanton tankada bunda molbela besa fero kela kala mutande.
When I told him that,
bring no fire,
he was overwhelmed. Couldn't know what to say. I said, I must see my client, whether you like it. Then he said he was going to send word inside to the directors if they would give me access. It was the officers inside who refused. I was informed by Nafi that doctor was taken out of the NIA premises in the night because of the severity of his condition. He was taken to RVH for treatment. So Monday, I made contact with the German consulate. Because there were 2 German nationals involved. Apparently, the NIA gave those people an appointment for them to go back on Monday. So I escorted them to the NIA. But when I reached, I wanted the confrontation between my clients and the NIA officers to be in my presence. I refused. Did so with arrogance. I left the German nationals there and I went back to the court. Then I did my investigation. I interviewed them. They gave me a detailed account of how they were treated. And how doctor was also brutalized. In fact, Dr. Mala told me that the last time he saw Dr. Alamin, he was being dragged on the floor and he was not sure if there was life in his body. Then I decided to write a petition to the Director General.
jel to ngani miro ta silam pour nga safero ke petition o safe ngaki director general coordinateur.
Do you know the reason for this treatment?
Yalla dalilo me asabu ni maral nya yakala.
Well, the Germans, Dr. Mahla,
in German dingol Dr.
came to
Mahla
Gambia to purchase diamonds.
Another Gambia banko kanjane pour ka lulu sang diamond.
He purchased 8 pieces of diamonds.
Pieces say I will sang.
And in fact, he went to Freetown.
Another not Freetown.
He didn't buy the diamonds here in the Gambia.
Sorry?
He went to Freetown.
Another Freetown, Saralian Banko gang.
And he purchased the diamonds there.
Ayin diamond ol sanje.
And he was given his certificate of origin.
And we not na nyin kaito dia la member twanyan la ko nyi mu diamond ol leti.
He had a friend called Nicholas Westphal.
Terima do sore ka me Nicholas Westphal.
Nicola had a girlfriend.
Nicola sunguro do babulu.
She was the NIA informant.
Wala NIA la kibar dila wala kibaro di NIA.
She disclosed to the NIA that these people have money and diamonds.
Wala na tana fo NIA la nyimoli ko do sore la dun diamond o bebulu.
Would you happen to know the value of those diamonds?
Well, on the diamond on the ka hirka kodola jellem ila kumanyo.
I cannot remember now how much they purchased the diamonds for.
Hakilota mudano le yo diamond ol yo lulu ol nya sanjel.
There were 8 pieces.
Pieces say them.
So they also had dollars.
Can you just enlighten me, Mr. Touray, because I'm a bit confused. The possession of diamonds, is that a national security threat?
Left the
Why were the NIA involved?
Left the sending. Foko diamond sandro woko to munyati ko abesilendir bunda na tela na tanko bunda fanala bang. For ajerta NIA dabula kon.
No, there was no security issue involved.
Hani tanko bunda kute jamea longo holda
only descended on them to extort their money and their diamonds from them.
Boite kan rom puru ka kodo tay bulu aninke la diamond wala fananta.
Because at that time,
kat wo watola.
The NIA enjoy a complete, total blanket impunity in this country.
Kadung NIA wo jamano la nitol mu moldat men yalon ka kukela nun kese buka bunda akono kubaka boato.
So they were lodged at Senegambia Hotel.
Ebe nun jiaring Senegambia Hotel olto.
It was this girlfriend who informed the officer commanding the NIA in, I think, Badala Park area.
Nyin sunkuto nyin wole NIA la me alon ko atel be Badala Park jamma fangola jang atele o NIA nyin kalamutandi.
They went and attacked them.
Itata iboite kan
and dispossessed them
andu inata na fengol table
of their money,
ila kodo
$206,000.
Wili keme fula wili woro dollar kodo
8 pieces of diamonds.
Anim kuntu sei diamond
Personal cell phones.
Anila mobile lolu
and their briefcase.
Anila kuneo.
So the NIA was turned into a criminal gang.
Sa NIA kam to ko ekata dinkrati mi alon ko kuja barala jawli kolekeji.
So I wrote a letter, a petition to the Director General.
Not letter was a purka Director General in Cordatio in
demanded that he should surrender his officers to the Inspector General of Police.
Kanin nako ala dokula nyimpura sa ID police la kuntenkola.
That the matter should be investigated.
Andunga tandi jefa ko ko nying anyana kisikisila
copied the entire establishment, that is all the permanent secretaries, all the ministers, all the foreign missions.
Andung na doku bundal besa fe permanent secretarial ministalu.
And I blew it in the private media.
And na kumakauny janjang kibar janjan bunda lo yana ko mandra masakunda ko.
It was the Independent that published the news.
Kibar bunda me bafla Independent wala na kibaro nyi wala na rana janjang.
It was a damning revelation against the NIA.
Mukula de kullo le me alon ko kullo wanyar le me alon ka boita NIA kan.
Following day,
Samo
Independent published the dismissal of all the NIA officers who were involved.
Independent kibar bunda nyi nata na safaro ke o NIA me alon ko be bulata ko nyi ngono ko yebe bayle.
But let me say this, that was the first of its kind.
Barmbadu nganyim fo wala mu koti me alon ko nyi akunyo anyon ko keta.
The NIA have never been dismissed for any unlawful act.
NIA inana me bay baral me alon ko ye baral menke ani luanta ya barole.
Before that time.
Watola.
They've never been arrested for any unlawful act before that time.
Inana me muta baral me alon ko luanta ya barole inana me mutala.
So the government acted responsibly.
They set
up a panel of investigators.
And they
were investigated. A report was issued. And they were charged and taken to court. And they were prosecuted. And except one, they were all convicted. But one was acquitted on appeal.
Modo bejede wo yew bulale o fanan sota da nyame aketa murun kan nan kiti yolde ibap mele appeal.
What happened to the diamonds?
Still not been recovered.
Ani kabi wol manje.
Neither the money nor any of the personal possessions. The German government asserted all forms of pressure on the Gambia government. Through the European Union. Up to now, the diamonds have not been.
Do you have any idea, any rumors about where, in whose hands they possibly could be?
Well, when the matter was going to the panel, one of the officers, NI officers involved, one of the suspects, sent a friend of his to me. Said he wanted to disclose the location of the diamonds. Who had some of the money as well. Only if he would get my cooperation. I said, if he was willing to do so, let him do so. I was willing to engage headlong that person, no matter who he is. But at the same time, they were being prevailed over by Abdullah Kujabi. Who was promising to reinstate them. So he could never get that done. Because he was also finally removed from the NIA. He was transferred to Brikama as governor. Yes, but when I published that letter, and they were sacked, I remember lawyer Jobate. Baba Dinding. Met along the corridors of the court in the High Court. He said, Borry? He said, I won my case without trial because of you. I said, which case? He said, NIA sees his clients' vehicles and other possessions, and he has made strenuous efforts to recover them without success. And he filed an action before the High Court. But the case was dragging. So when you publish that, your dangerous letter, they called me and said, come and collect all your clients' properties. As a matter of fact, that time in question, NIA was full of equipments, movables, items they have lawfully seized from people. That day they discharged everything. All those items. Yes.
Who were the particular accused persons in that case, the NIA officials?
I can only remember the names of two of them now. Salimina Drame and Kajali Jawara. There was a boy so named Baro. I can't remember the rest of them, their names.
And do you know if that particular case had any political influence whatsoever?
Okay, did
those diamonds land in the hand of anybody in the higher echelons of the government?
I did not know the person in the I did not know in whose possession they were. But as a matter of fact, when this issue arose, the officers who actually raided the Germans in their hotel room were also arrested And I believe that time they must have recovered the authorities, senior authorities must have recovered all these positions.
Njikita watu wala nu ile fana itola fana ena ile nyato ngol nyinga sikeno yo fengo soto fengol nyi menta nyi jamano buri yo fana tawo.
But they quickly released them.
Bari tariyar nge nara ne bulale.
They wanted to cover up the story.
Ile fta ko nyinda ka mabo.
Is it possible that the diamonds
fo asikeno la banyin lulu nying
are still in the hand of those NIA officers who had recovered them initially? Did they benefit from it?
Hanin kabi abenyin diamond fa asikeno la banyin diamond nyi morando nyi lulu nyi memuda han kabi ila mira do fa mira asikeno la ko abetarle la maroko no la
I don't think that was possible. My strongest conviction is that they must have surrendered them to the authorities. When I published the letter, the then Director General Abdullah Kujabi was very annoyed about it. He saw that as the strongest challenge to the authority of the NIA. The following day, no, the very day the letter was published, I had the matter I went for in SL Magistrates Court. I was coming, I had one of these small boats. Then I received a call. A young lady in the office of the NIA called me. He said, "Are you lawyer Touray?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm calling from the office of the President, NIA headquarters." Said the Director General has instructed me to inform you that you are needed at the NIA headquarters. I told her, "Tell your boss you have conveyed the message." Then I switched off my phone. I went home straight. It was much later that I was discussing with the then DPP Ajim. Then he told me this scenario, what happened between himself and Abdullah Kujabi. How that happened was when these people were being prosecuted in Kanifing. On one occasion, he complained to me, the DPP complained to me. He said I was not following up on the matter. I said to him, but I came to court and I gave my testimony, and that's all I can do.
So you were a witness in this particular case?
Yes, I was a witness in the matter. Because the Germans could not come back. Because they were afraid of their own safety. So I had to go to court to give evidence. So that was the moment he told me. He said, you know, when you published that letter, Abdullah came to my office. He was fuming with rage.
Sorry, can you repeat?
He was very angry. He said Abdullah asked him, "Who is this lawyer?" He said, "He's a young man, he's around." He said, "We must arrest him." He said, "You want to arrest him?" He said, "Yes." He said, "In all my working relationship with you, I want to advise you today. And I want you to sit down. And you keep quiet. And I'll close my office. I'll lock it. And I want you to listen to me very carefully." He said, "Did you read this letter?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Then you didn't understand it." He said, "I understood the letter." He said, "No." He said, "Abdullah." He said, "The gentleman who wrote this letter, yes, if you want to arrest him, you will arrest him. But that will not scare him. I can assure you that. And if you release him, he's going to destroy your life. He said there is another part of the story which he has not published. And that will be a direct attack on you in person. He said when he told him that, then he realized he was feeling cold. He said, if you arrest him, you release him. But if you release him, he will destroy your life. And that was the absolute truth. Because briefly before that diamond incident, I had investigated the matter involving the Al-Rawi brothers. I had already investigated the matter involving the Al-Rawi brothers who were taken to Guantanamo Bay in Al-Rawi brothers. And all that evidence that I had was pointing at Abdullah in person. But that was it. He left the scene. He went to Brikama. That was the end of the story.
But the diamonds, they've disappeared forever.
They disappeared forever.
Plus over $200,000 US.
And let me also add, Dr. Alamin sold his house in Germany. Took that money, invested it in this diamond business. The profit that he was going to earn from that business, he wanted to build a children's home in the Gambia. That was going to be a charity.
I just wanted to make the link that Abdullah Kujabi was the head of the NIA then.
Yes, he was the head of the
NIA. And he reported directly to the president. And it is clear from evidence we've received in the commission that apart from that working relationship, there was also a personal relationship between them.
Well, we understand that he is an uncle to Jame. I don't know how true it is. And that was what forced me to give the letter a nationwide publicity. I didn't want the story to be covered. Much as I was interested in exposing it, I was equally interested in embarrassing the government.
Another cases you've been involved in was the cases of Ensa Baji, aka Jesus, who was a former IGP, as well as Usman Jame, former SG.
Dablo ta diamol min kono wolem mi yalon ka kata num police la kunton kodi ka fa Ensa Baji aning Usman Jame.
Perhaps you could just treat the two together just to show what the issues were in those cases and how civil servants were prosecuted, arrested, prosecuted in the courts and dealt with by the regime.
Asa isa ku flol ka funyo mara ye diama fanala coming ika mol mi ala be do ko ke kan man say ke mutanya jile ke samba kitin dulade ke kitin di nyami isa kumol fo ay tawo ka fanala.
Ensa Baji, former Inspector General of Police.
Ensa Baji, police la nundo ko nyaron ko.
This case was one of clear witch hunt.
I'll tell you the genesis why I was charged. He
came here before the TRRC. Perhaps he did not disclose, but actually led to his arrest. I'll tell you today. As I was charged because of the Ghanaian case. And the drug that was uncovered in Bonto. When this Ghanaian incident happened, Mr. Baji was not in the country, he was in Sudan. Mr. Baji, it was when he came that he was elevated, he finally became Inspector General of Police. The UN sent a team of investigators.
United Nations mwelem dunia bela o kafu ba nyingi na kafo mo wulinde ja membu na ko nyin kiskisi la jang.
When they came, he was then the Inspector General of Police. There was a request that the police investigate the matter. Jesus refused. Said it was an NIA operation. The police had nothing to do with it. So let them ask the NIA to investigate the matter. They said no, they wanted a neutral body, and that's the police. To investigate the matter. He still refused. Then, as a way of meeting in the middle, he proposed that he could convey the NIA investigation report as IG to the UN. United Nations now. They all agreed over that. He wrote a letter and forwarded the report. Thereafter, he told me in person that the then Director General of NIA, Numo Kujabi, told him, did you realize that the information that you gave to UN was not correct? So he said he expressed anger over the matter. And he was not happy that he was misled in sending a wrong report. It was his belief, and I believe him, that it was Mr. Numo Kujabi who informed the government, the president at the time, that Jesus was going to leak the truth about the NI, the Ghanaian incident. Because if you come to the substance of the charges against him, he was accused of being part of a ring of robbery incidents in the country. At the material time, those robberies were taking place. It was Jesus who arrested all the people involved. He arraigned them before the court. And they were convicted. They all escaped from custody, lawful custody, after their conviction and sentence. At that material time, he was, they escaped within the jurisdiction of the KMC. Jesus was then police commissioner in Brikama. It was the commissioner of operations who asked him to assist the police, the Gambia police force, in tracking the culprits back again. He arrested all of them along the Gambian border between the Gambia and Casamas. And they were brought back and prosecuted for escape from lawful custody. And they were sentenced again. Would anybody imagine that the officer who has arrested you has taken you to court? You have been convicted and sentenced. And again you have escaped. He has arrested you again. He has taken you to court and you have been convicted. If it was true that Jesus was part of that ring of conspiracy of the robberies, what was most natural was for them to have accused him. They did not. So they brought him to court. And false witnesses to give false testimony against him.
Sede follow men nata ki sede andiro di me alon ko amanke sede and tilindingo de me alon ko yola la kan.
Some of them, they promised them that they were even going to release them.
Doli be je fa la hido di la ko be bulalale.
If they would agree to give false testimony against him.
Ni sonta pour ka sede andiro me alon ko be kala sede andiro de me alon ko ta kala sede and
And on the strength of that, he was convicted.
And dalilo kande minata na sorong.
And that was information you received from your client at the time.
Yes, but quite apart from the information, his narration. I mean, you look at the setting, the possibilities. Is it reasonably possible that you can arrest me? We can be part of a conspiracy, and I'm getting the largest booty out of that. You arrest me now, take me before a court, get me convicted and sentenced. For some of them, they were serving a period of 10 years.
Ana amanke ko nyin lana ko me ate men fonye bari misal fe don kun hakilo fo hakilo si nyimuta no ite keta modi ya momuta ya tumi ite ata yo momuta na ya nati ki asamba kitio nyati lon kitio ya kitindi kitio ya soron ay kana maroko no mansala maroko no ay kana inata nata yo mari mutana ya nati ko take ite hani kabi o mankanya ko sa ite ni o molle o mo kilingol ite o me alon ko si nyafula ibita be mutala ibe nati la iko inarna tumiro ko ite ni o molle be fule kiling al kaku ke me alon ko luwanta yala memu boyinkande.
At no time, there was no allegation raised by any one of those accused persons that he was part of the ring of robbery which was ongoing in the country.
Who
gave the evidence that you're alleging was false in court?
There was this chap called Ramses.
Sorry?
There was this chap called Ramses. He came here and gave a testimony. And there was one gentleman, Abdurrahman, I think he's Abdurrahman Jallo. He was from Basse, but he's late now. Many of the witnesses even had to apologize to him in mile 2. So, but at the time, you go before the criminal court. Because of the proceedings, text message will enter a judge's number. And then you say court rise. Almost every sitting, the NIA would be there. Signals will be given to the judge. And he will rise and you go to chambers and they'll meet him there.
Who was the judge that handled that case?
Ikpala handled one of the matters and Justice Amadi handled the other.
And those events that you just mentioned happened in both of their cases, in their courts?
Not the issue of text messages coming through judge's phone in those two matters, but it happened in other sister cases. Not in Essex case, but it happened in other sister cases.
So your conclusion is that it is your belief that those charges were bogus?
Of course, they were hoax charges.
But nonetheless, the court convicted them.
Yes, of course.
What about, are you finished?
Yes, I believe so far.
We are running out of time, actually.
Before you leave the answer by Jesus matter,
yes.
Is it your assertion, Mr. Touray, that he could not have been party to the massive cover-up that followed them on the crime of killing the West African migrants?
Well, he was not in the country. Right. And from the story that I gathered from him, he never wanted the police to investigate the matter. All right, but I think what he did was to forward a copy of the NIA report to the UN. At least that he told me.
Well, is that transmittal that perhaps would have linked him to the cover-up?
Sorry?
I say the cover-up could have been the transmittal of the report to the UN.
Yes.
But you are indicating that, or you're asserting that no, he could not have been part of that cover-up.
The version that I got from Jesus was this.
Jesus blue wala mnyindi.
That's as at the time when the report was being sent.
Watu wamena nyi report onyi yaki.
He did not know how those people met their death.
Omol nying amalong wulie la saya nying inata na ifanje nyadi la usaya kono.
All right. It was after the events that Numo informed him that in fact he died out of wrongdoing. But the question of cover-up, I wouldn't be able to express any opinion on that.
Fine. Thank you. Council, continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just lastly, the issue of Usman Jame.
Okay. Usman was charged with the offense of economic crime.
Usman ya tumiro men denga kangoda wala mnyitego fankotinya ayo barata wala.
And was arraigned before the magistrate in Banjul Magistrates Court.
Ya samba kiti mundandingo to memo Banjul Magistrates Court.
The court does not have jurisdiction to hear matters
otumiri sifa kiti bundandingo man sembo so puruka kiti
pertaining to economic crime.
Men kamuta fankotinya.
Nonetheless, he was convicted.
But onya inara na sorong.
Even when the court does not have jurisdiction.
And do you believe that both of these cases, the Ansar Baji case as well as the Usman Jame case, do you believe they were both politically motivated, and what is your reason?
For isa fono ko Ansar Baji la diamoning ani Usman Jama be mo fenet mi political ba konole and ite mon dalil le sort of neatara yewole fo.
I've already told you the background to the Ansar Baji case. The case involving the former Secretary General Usman. The dimension that I have raised is the lack of jurisdiction in the court.
Even
if the charge against Usman was true, it should have been arranged before the High Court. But the only reason why they arranged him before the Magistrate Court was because the government was certainly confident that they were going to get a conviction against. Notwithstanding the court's lack of jurisdiction.
And what was the government's interest in his case? Why was he charged and brought before the court?
You know, I may not be able to go into the details of that, but there was a lot of infighting within the public service.
Yes. What was his position? Sorry?
He was Secretary General.
Secretary General.
The civil service.
And he was working directly on the Jame. So definitely something like that would not have happened if Jame did not actually consent to it.
Of course. I mean, you cannot get the Secretary General dismissed, arrested and charged and convicted without President giving directives.
Secretary General, it also no la ka umuta ka sindidula kilinga tumiro denga kangoda hanika bi amanda or kasamba kidi dularo ya for president de mamfen kala muraje tumala mera do ko la president wala ko
as well as the previous IGP as well, that would be the same case.
Ani fana police wala kunton ko nunto ufana la ko keta no wala nyam.
What happened later was that these directives were in writing. The Office of the President will write directly to the IGP, arrest this man, investigate and prosecute.
President office ka safaro ke police wala kunton ko la office wala ka fako ani mo kare alamuta aliya kitindi oranda le tumiro de ngaka ngoda sifa la ka kata ma.
Because I remember in the case involving Dr. Njoguba,
hakilo ba kan case me alon ko Dr. Njoguba ba ko
Lamin AMS Jobate.
In Lamin AMS Jobate.
And no, I believe in the case of a copy of that directive came to the court. It was the case involving Jobate.
And you were privy to that?
Yes.
But in the cases of your own clients, that did not happen.
But it found clear no fanala woman kuti minketa.
No, they did not produce any executive directive. If they existed at all.
Ani maya maribnati ka foko safari yamarole membera president office or osifa le mona ndela kiliano lam ko.
But you believe that this happened, it was orally done because it could not have, these prosecutions could not have happened without the knowledge and the consent of the head of state.
Committee it is someone no kito la na tada no president
Inspector General of Police remand him mile 2 without the president giving orders to it.
Tonyati police la kundongo eto wota mutano la katumiro de nganga ya samba kasebungo do ya tara bankola nyarongo
mem president appointing authority.
President wala nyarongo de menka tambondroke.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Barabaka Mr. Touray.
We have come to the end of your testimony. And I will now hand you over to Mr. Chairman and the commissioners for any questions.
Very detailed and informative testimony. Thank you so much, Mr. Touray. We've taken a full day of your time, but to come and assist us in our fulfillment of our mandate. Well, thank you very much indeed for a very good testimony.
Abaraka bake kansul abaraka bake sedo being tatilo be mume nata si jampruke la sediandro di sediandro mi alon ka kita kumati mi alon ka kumata bakanda asa hayata fana.
Commissioners, if you have any questions, please indicate. Imam C, you have the floor, please.
Imam C la lafta ke nyininka.
Mr. Touray jërëjëf.
Mr. Touray, thank you.
Ci sa wax bi rafet na trop.
Your testimony, for your testimony here, it is very clear.
Waaw ñu lay gërëm ci li nga wax ni wax bi nga xamantene wax nga ko boole ko ak sa dëgër fit.
We are thanking you, the testimonies that you have gathered here, and you have stated your testimonies with confidence.
Waaw liggéey bi nga liggéey depuis bi nga nekké depuis buñ duggé TRRC ñu ngi dégg sa tour.
Since we ever started this TRRC, we have been hearing your name.
Ben niñ la gisé tay.
Until up to today when we see you.
Waaye dëgg sa liggéey bi rafet na trop.
But truly, you have did a very good job.
Jaar nga fu xat waaye terewul ni nga buggé sa réew.
You have encountered difficulties, but still that does not prevent you to show how much love you have for your country.
Gennulo dawulo ndak bugga sa réew.
You didn't run away because you love your country.
Parce que amon nga chance nga tan fu la nek nga dem fa.
Because you were having the opportunity to travel to anywhere you wanted to live.
De nga don am fofu liggéey.
You will have secured a job there.
Waaye ni nga buggé sa réew mi.
Because of the love you have for your country.
That's
the reason why you didn't go away.
Man lima lay laaj rek moy nak mos nga am bis bi nga xamantene kérok mom tiit nga trop.
The only question I have for you is whether there was a particular day that day you were very scared and threatened.
Okay, thank you so much, Imam C.
Imam C.
I don't know how to how to answer this question. Quite frankly, there were people who came to my father on a number of occasions to warn him that I should be careful. To the extent that he wouldn't allow me to be outside by Maghrib time. 7, I must be inside the compound. I was also privy to some confidential information. That my name was listed down. But I was not traumatized by that. I knew one thing, Jammeh was going to leave this country. And I have faith in the Almighty. I know no matter how difficult the challenges were, Jammeh was going to leave me here. Yes. If I was threatened, I would have left the Gambia.
Ninga transila tanu Gambia banko mba bulala lengata.
Thank God then.
Thank you very much. Deputy Chair, you have the floor, please.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Sagar. Thank you, Borry. Let me add my voice to that of Imam by congratulating you and also to thank you for your courageous stance and against tyranny. Now, having said this, I have got two brief questions. I don't know whether the answer will be brief. Did you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, the first one is, how did the overt disregard of judicial values and processes by the judiciary
sila akeno ranyare judiciary memo kiti bundal nyinti ila bunya hormoni bunya aning alonko tamani mafa jiko men sorka be kang
impact on the public trust and confidence in the legal system of the country?
Narna kolea dal sabu jamae jiko ni mafa men soro ye.
And on strengthening impunity.
Aning kanana moe kuge me ya lonko ay luatinya ay maria tuo nyama kumala bo kang ka ko nyi julo saba.
Okay, thank you so much. I must say you have summarized it all.
Baraka bake mbafula ko yekumoni ya fole ya sutiandile yafo.
If you work in the judiciary at that time,
there
was a time when, in fact, when people have problems, they don't want to engage Gambian lawyers. There were few who would want to engage Nigerian lawyers. Because the belief is that if you engage a Nigerian lawyer, he'll be able to talk to his brother Nigerian judge. That even if you have to be convicted, there can be some sympathy for you. The Jammeh completely overrun the system. Judiciary was firmly in his grip. But there were a few exceptions. It was all not bad.
I
remember one young man, Lamin Bai. He was a magistrate in Banjul Magistrate Court. You are assured that if you are arraigned before him, he will grant you bail. And there were sister Gambian judges also. They would come between the state and the citizens. But the system was that bad. It reached a point when, in fact, the accused persons were detained along with witnesses.
I don't
know if you understand what I'm saying. Witness will be arrested and detained and will not be released until when he gives his testimony. So that was how bad the system was. And he not only asserted pressure on the judiciary, but in the criminal division also. He had a fund that was being disbursed by the Ministry of Justice. This issue was raised before this very commission, but it was not properly investigated. There was not full and complete disclosure Because every payment that was made was documented. And I will tell you, in the handing over notes of one Attorney General after the order, most of these payments were highlighted. So that was how bad it was. And most of our colleagues, the lawyers, were fatigued. They were exhausted. Some wanted to pack up and wanted to leave the jurisdiction if Jammeh was to win in 2016. It was God's time that he had a change. Yes.
The second question is in relation to how the military turned courthouses into military zones to instill fear into the judges so that they could influence their judgments.
Isaje o kidi telal nying ila kidi telo nying nyanna ka ka nyame isaje si maslangota ya dundol sondomol kono nyanna kuntula nyame ata kuntula o nyama.
You had the personal experience.
Ita fon kunnon keta molde me ya lonko ya lon ya ko nyin takile.
But not everyone is Borry Touray.
Bare mobe manke Borry Touray tide.
And not everyone is Justice Monaghan.
Bare mobe fana manke Justice Monaghan.
So how did this really affect the judges in giving out their judgment?
Sila nying akakikeno nyare le nara nying kuolbe lare inteng kiti tela nying niara kuolbe lare inteng ikang ila kiti kundunya nying akela kiti kundunya nying akabatandi no nyadi le.
Okay, thank you. I think
Baraka.
In the recent past, they resorted to bringing the paramilitary to escort accused persons to court. I think the idea of soldiers escorting suspects in court wasn't a very common phenomenon.
Na jike ko wala nga mira ko komi kanyi soja rol mi yalan ko kana ikamol dandan nan kiti bundati fenne mi yalan ka mang dan nek kanu.
It's only when soldiers are involved in treason that sometimes you see soldiers.
But there
was an incident in 2006 when Justice Yeboah was handling the treason trial. One of the soldiers misfired his gun. And as at the time when it happened, the judge was very close by. He had to run into our chambers. So many things happened. But the picture was all not bad too. There was interference, but yes, there were people who actually balanced the show. Yes, among the judges and the magistrates. And I must also say that most of this trouble actually would happen in the criminal division. The High Court is divided into various divisions. So if you are not in the criminal division, you have a peace of mind. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Council.
Thank you. Imam C, don't shower Mr. Touray with lots of praises about bravery.
imam si agada mo di mialanka ye jay bagala coming iketa jambaro mindik.
No, I said he shouldn't shower
amanyana ko itandi ko ite mu kere
with
jawaro
lots of praises because that bravery doesn't originate from him. The Tourais have their syringe, there's the Sisem and the Morris. They are the ones who make them brave. So don't give him any praises about being brave. Commissioner Kerr, you have the floor, please.
Commissioner Kerr, wala lafta sedo nyini kala kotenke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Kaya inumbarabake chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Touray, for your wonderful work.
Inumbarabake Mr. Touray memusedo ila doku kendoka.
Defending the human rights of your fellow citizens.
Kalo banku dunyolu kalo kela nyantota ka kele.
It's indeed commendable.
Kulemme yalonko tenturo ninjairo be yoto.
I want to ask you two questions.
Lafte nyininkala nyininkar fulalla.
The first is in relation to the reasons that you have given before this commission.
For
why you believed Mr. Esa Baji was witch hunted.
Mr. Esa Baji ala
You've told us that it was in relation to two issues, that is the issue of the Ghanaians and the issue of the drugs. And you have told us why he was persecuted in relation to the Ghanaians. I didn't hear you narrate the other issue, which is the issue of the drugs. Can you help us with that?
Thank you. It was an oversight and it was a very interesting observation. You know, it was the international intelligence institutions that alerted the Gambia government.
That
a large quantity of drugs was stored in Bonto and it was being peddled. The perception of the president was that it was Jesus who leaked that intelligence to those institutions. And that was the very reason why they turned the story around to implicate him, the very person, in that allegation. Because this was an isolated spot. And if you know Jesus, I will tell you a remark made by Sidney Riley of blessed memory. He was former Inspector General of Police. I remember one day he picked me in his car. We were both going to Kanifi Magistrates Court. My vehicle had a breakdown. That was when Jesus' case was ongoing. He told me, he said, I wish you well in this matter. He said, your client was a very effective field officer. Even as a junior officer from the training school. He said, you give him any file, no matter how complicated, he will bring you results within 24 hours. But Jammeh himself said it. He said, it's now that I have got the best Inspector General of Police. Referring to Jesus. So he thought there couldn't have been any other person who could have leaked that vital intelligence information without Mr. Baji.
So your belief is that Jammeh knew about the drugs? He didn't want anybody to disclose it or to leak it.
Andunga malla fi hani mokili membe soda la kawin ku kaw disira ma fe ngol ko nyinta ka wanyar.
Well, see, I did not participate in that trial. But my brother was one of the lawyers in the case. And that is LS Camara. We cannot disclose it all as lawyers. Client's confidence. But if you would go through the cross-examination records. When I was cross-examining Silaba Samate, the issue about the origin of those drugs and who was behind it was clearly captured. He denied, but I put it to him. Yes. Let me tell you this. Is it reasonably possible that such an operation can take place in a country without any solid arrangement with the government of the day? All of the people involved are foreigners. Not one Gambian among them. You ship 2 tons of cocaine inside the country. And then you get on and about trading it. We are all not sleeping in this country. There must have been some high degree of complicity. And you would be surprised that notwithstanding amendments to the law on drugs, imposing, in fact, death penalty, the Venezuelans were subsequently pardoned and they were all released from prison. They only served a very short period. At least if the state was completely innocent about it, they shouldn't have given them this thing. They shouldn't have given them pardon for the largest shipment of drugs in the nation. In our entire history. And not only drugs. They also had AK-47 machine guns with them. And that was the latest version of the AK-47. At least. If you say this, I wouldn't mind much about drugs, but at least the gun peddling aspect of it, in my opinion, should have been such a weightier consideration on the part of the government not to have granted them any form of pardon. So my conclusion is that those who came here on an arranged platform that they will enjoy impunity and trade what they traded and nothing was going to come back. But for the international alert, they would not have been arrested.
Thank you. My final question. We've all commended you for your excellent work. And I know Imam has asked you a very funny question. But you've worked in an environment which was very difficult, as your colleagues did. So my question is, what kept you going and what was your most inspirational moment in your career at that time?
Well, it was only God. Quite frankly. Yes, and I must say I was given to a lot of prayer also.
Yes.
On my own accord, sometimes it even affects my work, my coursework. Yes, when I close from office, I have no business with my books. So that's the other part of my life.
Thank you once again.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Mr. Touray, if you have any concluding remarks to make, you may please proceed to do so now.
Mr. Touray, silang commissioner mo mansoro membe lafte ke nyininka silang kiamane du silo dila ninga dre kuma soro be lafle ke la kuma da soro men isitenteng.
I thank God that I have sailed through this. And let me emphasize that I owe my very life to the Almighty. He was the creator who protected me and guided me throughout. What we have gone through as a nation was highly traumatizing. Most of what comes to us as lawyers is what is visible. The physical abuse on our clients, the infraction of their rights, and so on. But I remember I was talking to Dr. Sise of Kololi Clinic. I referred a client to him who was a subject of abuse. For him to examine his body and do a medical report. He told me, I have seen the gentleman he referred to me. He said, but the two sister professions, law and medicine, he said, I think we know more than the lawyers in terms of the trauma which is meted out on victims. He said there are certain aspects of their experience that they would not disclose to their lawyers. He said, I give you a case in point. He said, an elderly gentleman from within the community of Brikama, highly responsible person, who has a very large family. He has got children and grandchildren. He said he was brutalized by the junta all over his body. But that was one small part of it. He said the detailed part of the agony was that he was castrated. He said when the man told him this, he then asked him, why don't you go to the press and publicize this? He said the man turned around and told him, he said, I don't want to embarrass my family, my wives, my children and grandchildren. So he said, I must keep quiet over this till my grave. For me, it's, and I believe for all of us, it's a learning experience. I used to have a great deal of confidence in the average Gambian. I thought everybody was a dependable character. I remember when I was a student in Furabe, then the NPC government, the APC government had failed completely the nation.
APC mansakundani imang taranyake mialango mol banko dingol fonga jikitano wala.
On a daily occurrence, things would happen to the disappointment of the average citizen. And I used to stand in the midst of my Sierra Leonean colleagues and I would tell them, this is not possible in the Gambia. I used to swear on the Quran that this cannot happen in the Gambia. Because I had faith in the country. But I was mistaken. What Jammeh did, he did it in conspiracy with Gambians. And like Vatikiotis said, he's a historian who wrote the history of Egypt in a book entitled Modern Egypt. He said no society is written on a tabula rasa. No society is written on a clean slate. I thank God for one development in the sub-region. I believe in smaller nations like the Gambia, we may not go through the experience of coups anymore. Because if it happens, the bigger nations will not, in West Africa, will not allow it. But for that, what I have seen Gambians tolerate, anytime there is a coup in this country, we can be enslaved in our own country. As far as the army is concerned, I was very hopeful that there was going to be security sector reforms. But I'm disappointed. I was hopeful that the commissions of inquiries that actually were established I was hopeful that the government was going to implement the recommendations of those commissions of inquiry. But I'm equally disappointed. And I'm afraid that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report may be faced with the same degree of lethargy that at the end of the day it will only become stories in our bantabas. I think we are faced with the problem of leadership. I'm not doing politics, but this is our country. I'm calling on the government without any partisan feeling. People who took liberty, who took liberty into their hands and brutalized innocent Gambians. I'm appealing to the government that They must not allow an air of impunity over that. Because I believe every Gambian has the urge to revenge. But the only reason why people are not doing so is because they have faith that the government will enforce the law. So I'm calling on all Gambians. I'm calling on the government that at least if all other commission reports are going to be ignored, the report of the TRRC should be looked into. I had the unfortunate experience of listening to a lady when I was a magistrate in Farafenye. She was a relative of Sadauda. Only because of that, she was arrested. Brought to mile 2. Was tortured naked. Electrocuted. In her private part. Cold water poured over her. Anytime she sits to reflect over it, she will cry. And she was in, she had age on her side. Are we going to allow all these people to go to their graves without any form of justice taking place? As a government and a people, I hope, and this is my very big hope, that the government will give due attention to the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Because without it, how are we going to guarantee justice to people who have been traumatized? Some people are not even enjoying the common feeling that they are Gambians. Because they feel that they have been betrayed and disappointed by their own government. I'm referring to the APRC government. The people you are expected to protect, if they are the ones who have now become your victims, are we going to allow that climate of impunity to prevail? I hope we will all, as Gambians, take the position that that is not going to prevail in this country. Really. People have seen their parents abused in all forms. And the only reason why they have not taken to the part of revenge is because there is a hope that a day of reckoning will come. And people will be called to account. In my personal opinion, even when those who have been brutalized have forgiven, I don't think there should be blanket impunity. And I believe that's all I have to say. There have been many Gambians, like myself, who stood their grounds, who are not alive here today. So for me, it's not on account of my own strength. It's only by the will and the power of the Almighty. I thank my parents. And then I thank TRRC. I was unable to come here much earlier, mainly because of my schedule in the courts. But may I take this opportunity to thank the entire staff of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. It's a service which the nation appreciates very much. Because for us lawyers, we've been privy to most of this information. But if you tell a lot of people in the streets, they can't believe it. So, but the perpetrators themselves, some of them, have now opened up. And they have explained what they did. Although many also came here, and they lied. And the nation is aware that in fact they have lied. So, Honorable Chairman, I can only commend you and members of your commission and the entire staff here. We are praying and hoping that the Almighty will continue to guide you for you to be able to successfully accomplish this task. I thank you all. And God bless you all.
Thank you. Lots of wisdom in those concluding remarks, Mr. Touray. Thank you very much indeed for all your efforts in the coming to testify. Yes, the objectives of the commission as defined them in the Constituent Act does mention healing and reconciliation. But it also has as a principal objective addressing impunity.
We
as a commission will do our best to make recommendations that would help bring about reconciliation and reconciliation, healing, but very importantly, to address impunity. And make recommendations for meaningful reforms. We do hope that the country as a whole would fight and struggle to implement those recommendations. Again, we thank you enormously for your efforts. And this would bring us to the end of our proceedings for today. And it is the end of the 22nd session of the Commission. We won't have any public hearings next week. We'll work in the committees. The work of the Commission would continue in the committees. And we will resume our public hearings on Monday, the 19th of April. We thank you very much, for your attention. And, we will call it a day and a week for the public hearings. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.